The Supreme Court will allow states to legalize sports betting.
Justices ruled 7-2.
The court struck down a federal law that banned gambling on sports games in most of the country.
The big headline is that this really paves the way for states across the country to legalize sports betting.
This is going to be a seismic shift.
We are already seeing the market react.
Everything is going to happen state by state.
Competition is thriving.
Of sports
There's a renaissance that's been happening.
Jobs have been created.
There's a lot of new technologies, in-game betting.
Any stock, a publicly traded company that deals in the gaming world, they're all rising.
I've learned this in the NFL.
Stop looking at the stats and watch the tape.
Sometimes you want to go against the money.
Belichick was obsessed with trying to find a goal line defense.
Pigskin pontification.
He's out there just throwing.
Give me the point.
He's a robot.
They've been covered about a 64% clip.
That's what a real football team looks like.
We're just seeing a revolution here.
Live from the new epicenter of East Coast sports betting, from the Ocean Resort Casino and the William Hill Sportsbook in Atlantic City, New Jersey, it's Betting Across America, your new go-to destination for everything sports betting. It's VSiN Coast to Coast. Here are your hosts, Michael Lombardi and Jonathan Von Tobel.
What's up, America? Ocean Resort Casino is the spot. You heard it. Jonathan Von Tobel, Michael Lombardi with you for the next 3 hours, leading you up to kickoff of the early games in the National Football League. And we are well rested, ready to go. Extra hour of sleep last night, good football games, and now we're ready for, I think, thus far, the best slate of National Football League games we've had.
No doubt. The NFL season really starts today. I mean, you get some great games. The one that's really not being talked much about because the Rams-Saint game is so big is this Ravens-Steelers game. The Ravens 4-4, the Steelers sit right there. The Steelers lost the first time. Huge games. I mean, this is really a great weekend. It was a great weekend in college football. You did good yesterday, my man. You were hot.
No, I did okay. It wasn't the best day.
No, but you had to, I tell you what, if you're not listening to the Saturday show, you're losing money. I mean, that's just a fact, right?
There's some good nuggets we threw out there. I'll give you that.
You are
the best bet of the
losing money
day.
if you're not. Johnny P was 3-1 yesterday.
Yeah.
If you're not watching Saturday, you're losing money. I'm serious.
Well, and the bet that you and I were all over yesterday that we kept agreeing on was Alabama against LSU. That was stealing candy from the baby.
I have two grandsons, and that would be like me taking candy from them. I mean, it's too easy. Like Nick Saban against Ed Orgeron. Like, that's not fair. You got to stop this. Like, that's not fair. They've gone from Les Miles to Ed Orgeron. Great guy. He's a Cajun, all that. You got to score. You have to have a passing game in football to win. Do you understand? This is not Woody Hayes versus Bo Schembechler. Speaking of that, I got to tell you, I watched Michigan yesterday. I watched Michigan. There's no way Michigan wins in a Final Four games if they get there with that pass offense. There's just no way.
They're going to be in the range of, depending on who they run into, whether it's Clemson or Alabama, considering those two are probably going to be the top two seeds. If they get a 3 or 4, they're going to be a they're going to be a double-digit dog to either one of them.
I mean, look, I think Michigan's great on defense. Don't get me wrong. I think Don Brown does a great job. But when they play a sophisticated passing game that understands how to attack, they're in trouble, and their offense can't score. I mean, they can't score the 3 plays, 3 runs. I mean, I know they're trying to make Bo happy up there in heaven, but at some point, Bo, this ain't Bo's game anymore.
Yeah. Well, and the big offensive wrinkle you and I were talking about yesterday through text is the read option. How all of a sudden Shea Patterson runs read options, and it's just the offense has opened up for Michigan at this point. You got to get a little bit more. You got to get a little bit more exotic when it comes to your packages in the past. I completely agree with you.
I'm glad we had the extra hour because being back on the East Coast, those late games kind of get you going. I mean, the Texas Tech Oklahoma game was a great game. Johnny P had that one in the first half. I think he called that one over on the first half. But there were a lot of great games, but disappointing. I think Georgia proved. Once again, I think what we learned from college football this weekend is if you can't throw the football effectively, no matter how good your defense is, you're never going to be able to run the ball to win against good teams. You just can't do it.
Speaking of college football, what you missed while you were sleeping last night, other than, Washington State not covering for the first time this year against Cal, you might have missed Miami and Duke. And I say that because that leads us into our first nugget, which is the fact that field is torn to shreds for this Miami-New York game later today. The Jets and the Dolphins going down at Hard Rock Stadium. This has been an absolute nightmare from everything that we're hearing in terms of field conditions, and you're starting to see it a little bit. The total right now for the Jets and the Dolphins sits at 42, 41, 41 and a half, but it's starting to trickle down. A lot of that I would think has to do with the fact that this field looks almost unplayable at this point.
Well, I mean, it's a mud track. I mean, and look, if you're a Dolphin fan, the way the Dolphins have played run defense the last 3 weeks, you've been giving up a ton of yardage in the running game. game, you got to be concerned. The Jets can at times during the season, and when Sam Darnold's most effective is when they can run the football effectively. So with the track the way it is now and Miami's run defense, this sets up really well for the Jets.
Yeah, see, and to me, when you look at this game overall, the thing I like a little bit about New York is they're starting to get a little bit healthier. The team allows defensively 4.4 yard per carry on the season, but they're getting healthier on both sides of the ball, whether it's Tremaine Johnson, who's doubtful, but other guys coming back on that side, and the wide receiving core, Quincy Enunwa, ankle injury, and Robbie Anderson
There's
also
the
dealing
field
with an
right
ankle
there,
injury.
JVT. Look at it.
It looked like they're going to come back, and this is a glimpse if you're watching the broadcast, either on Fubo TV, VSiN.com, or the VSiN app. This is a look at it. And if you watched the game last night, you saw that there were huge puddles along the field, especially, of course, in the middle of the hash marks. There was water flying up with almost every step for every single player. And this is what you have to deal with. At some point, I saw this from Pro Football Talk Up on Twitter. At some point with these stadiums, right, where you have multiple games and you have a team sharing it with a professional team, why not just switch to turf?
Yeah, I mean,
you're dealing with this.
We're talking about player safety all the time. We're talking about the helmet-to-helmet rule. We're talking about making sure the game's safe for players. And then we have a situation like that. We're talking out of both sides of our mouth. It costs coin to put a field in there. Somebody should pay. Look, there's enough money in the NFL that you can go just put the field in there. There's high schools that have field turf, right?
Yeah.
So just put the field turf in there and just let it go with that, because you're never going to change the weather in Miami.
Yep.
You're never going to change it. It's going to rain all the time, and if the University of Miami is going to continue to play there, you're going to have the same situation. Defensively for Miami, if just about this game, I think it's a tough one because Miami's given up 68 points the last 5 weeks. They've also given up 868 yards rushing. I mean, Miami's run defense to combine with the great Brock Osweiler making another appearance.
Great heist.
The heist. Casey Rogers, the defense coordinator of the Jets, I think he does a really good job of game planning the situations around the team. I think this is going to be a fascinating game for Miami. Can they come back? They're on this losing streak. You know, they've started out 3-0. Now they're 1-4 over the last 5 games. I think the Jets really, if Sam Darnold doesn't make mistakes like he did the first time they played him, I think the Jets have an opportunity here.
You mentioned the 60 points over the last 2 games, 33.6 over the last 5, and that's why they're 1-4.
Right.
And by the way, the first time that you and I spoke, at least on Point Spread Saturday or Sunday, many months back, when the Dolphins were 3-0, your favorite statistic, DVOA, had them as a top 3 defense. I mean, you saw it coming. You saw the cracks. And then what happened? They run into the Patriots, and it's all downhill.
I actually thought Miami, when I watched them in the preseason this summer, when I watched all their preseason tape, I thought they were a candidate to be the first pick in the draft.
Yeah.
I thought they were that bad. I thought and I thought if Tannehill got hurt, it was all going to go downhill. Now, I will say this. I thought Brock Osweiler's played better than I thought he would. I really did. I think he's played, not that he's played great, but he's played better. But I think this team is not very talented, and I think this team has become less and less talented as the year has gone on.
Yeah, 64% completion, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions for the great heist, as you call him,
heist,
Brock Osweiler, up to this point. Now, a team that has some health concerns, especially at one key position and one key player, but the bettors love to back them, and that is the Chicago Bears. For the second straight show, we have to open up here, at least on a Sunday, with the Chicago Bears because Khalil Mack, it looks like, is unlikely to play here in this game against the Buffalo Bills. Now, reports are that he's going to give it a go, at least in terms of pregame workouts, but they are preparing to play this game as though they expect not to have him on the field. They're a 10-point favorite. The Chicago Bears are opened up as an 8.5-point favorite against the Bills and Nathan Peterman, who is going to get the start here for Buffalo on their home field. Look, I get that it's Nathan Peterman, right? The guy's an interception machine. My favorite moment, I think, of the NFL season is we were watching games down here for the first time. They're taking on the Texans. He has to come in near the end of the game, and you hit me on the shoulder. You go, this kid could throw a pick. He throws a pick 6, and the Texans end up winning that game. And now he's taking on a Bears defense that could be without their best defensive player.
If I were to tell you at the beginning of today that the Bills quarterback had a lower quarterback rating than the temperature in Buffalo today, you would say I'm crazy. But I'm right.
Yeah.
It's Nathan Peterman's QBR rating is 31.
Yep.
That's unheard of, right? He throws less than 50% completions. He's thrown 3 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Okay? He can't make a play. He's never thrown a play for 25 yards or more. I don't know how you have the courage to put him out on the field. That being said, I look at this game and I say, look, Buffalo's good on defense. They'll create some turnovers. My man Mitchell Trubisky can't wait to turn the ball over with one of his wild throws.
Yep.
You know, there's a chance Buffalo can win the game. And then I look at Nathan Peterman and I say, there's no chance. Yep. Like, how are they going to do it? They need some production out of their quarterback. Alabama's off. I mean, Alabama's offense, I think, is actually better than Buffalo's offense. Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator at Buffalo, was at Alabama, and he's got to be saying, I had better players at Alabama. I think the biggest problem in Buffalo is their offensive line's not very good. They get no movement up front. They play too laterally to the line of scrimmage. They get pushed back all the time. There's no room for LaShawn McCoy to run. I just think, to me, this offense can't score points. That's why I know giving Mitchell Trubisky 10 points is ridiculous.
Yeah. But especially on the road.
On the road, yeah.
But so 37 points over the last 5 games scored total. That is for the Buffalo Bills. Speaking to your point about how bad this offense can be, the last 2 games, I think they've scored, 6 and 7. That was against the Colts and then against the Patriots on Monday night.
And we saw the Raiders move the ball on the Colts. Yeah, everybody moves the ball on the Colts.
Yes. In that game, we'll have to get into that a little bit more because that game was a little deceptive. Like, it was a 42-0 game. But when we talk about the Colts, maybe a little bit later if we get to bring them up. Regardless, though, we took a look at this Buffalo Bills team. The defense, I think, is the story here for Buffalo because they are about top 10, I want to say 6th in terms of yards per play allowed. Yeah. They only allow 5.2 yards per play on the season. They have been really keeping themselves in these games.
No doubt.
And that's why you see this total. This total right now is 37.5. So you're going to lay 10 points with a total, like the odds makers are projecting of 37.5 points. Like, that's, I think, a pretty big ask. This looks like a sloppy, low-scoring game to me.
I do. I think
and you talked about it, too. Trusting the great Mitch Trubisky. Mitch, please.
Mitchell.
Yeah, Mitchell. I'm right. You're right. It's more professional. Look, some of the numbers across the board, like he's projected to throw 34 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, complete 60% of his passes. But you have to look a little bit deeper. Patriots game, should have thrown 2 red zone interceptions, right? The wild throws that you mentioned. You put all that together, which is why that despite the classic stats saying he's actually a good quarterback, you can't trust him and lay double digits on the road.
No, you have to watch Trubisky before you want to tag him. I was in Chicago this week, and I saw more Mitchell Trubisky jerseys. I mean, they're drinking the Kool-Aid on Trubisky, okay?
Yeah.
And I don't want to break the bad news to him, but when he plays against a really good team, he's going to struggle. And when he plays against a really good team on the road, they've got 1 road win. They beat Arizona, and that was one of those games that was close. That's why, for me, 10 points to Buffalo just seems like the right play. But then I look at Peterman, and I think, how are they going to generate any points? I mean, if Buffalo kept Tyrod Taylor, they would probably be a middle-of-the-pack team. I mean, they're not, even though their offensive line, I think, has some limitations. The receivers, Kelvin Benjamin, literally is about 1 more good meal away from becoming a tight end. I mean, he just needs to move to tight end. Okay, he can't separate from anybody, so they got no speed on the outside, so they can't really threaten you. They're just a mess offensively, and it starts and ends with the quarterback.
Chicago right now getting 62% of the tickets, 56%
Where's the sharp
of the
money going here?
56% of the money is on Buffalo, but 62% of the tickets are on Chicago. Again, sometimes an indicator of sharp money is where you have more money on one side, but the tickets on the other. You get that discrepancy in terms of tickets and money. Says maybe that the sharps are on Buffalo here, but it's, again, not the end-all, be-all, as we've explained a couple times here. So let's go to another team that has some injury issues, and that would be the Houston Texans. Their injury report is really thick this week. A lot on the defensive side of the ball, but I think we want to focus on the offensive side because Kiki Cutie is actually now going to be out for the Houston Texans. He is not going to play their wide receiver. And now on the surface, QT is not really a huge loss, right? He's a slot guy, but when you have Will Fuller lost to a torn ACL, now you have Cutie out, and then on top of that, you have to break in a guy like Demaryius Thomas. Hopkins is going to get all the attention in the world. He's going to get bracketed. He's going to get doubled, and it's going to be on the rest of this team to do something.
Yeah, no doubt. And this is really, look, I think, QT was a nice slot guy, played inside. I think Bruce Ellington was a good player. When he got hurt, they lost him. They've had a lot of injuries. But to me, the biggest issue here is losing Will Fuller. They lost somebody to take the top off the defense. They lost somebody who can spread the field horizontally and vertically. Lamar Miller's been excellent in the backfield. He's been able to run the ball effectively. Deshaun's really effective in shotgun. But unless you can separate the defense down the field, which Will Fuller could do, I think the key guy here is Sammy Coates. And I know nobody wants to talk about him. Sammy Coates can take the top off the defense. You got to defend Sammy Coates. If he's healthy, he can be the X factor for them. Demaryius Thomas can play and give them possession downs. He leads the league in drop passes already. His numbers have gone down completely, but I think Sammy Coates has to help. This is a tough spot for Houston. We talk receivers, but Kendall Lamb, their right tackle, Julian Davenport, their left tackle, they're penalty machines, both players. False starts, holding penalties. They're playing against 2 defensive ends. Bradley Chubb will play down defensive line in this game. Von Miller will play down defensive line in this game. So they'll be a nickel the whole game, and that's when Chubb's most effective. Chubb's got 7 sacks. Miller's got 8. They got 15 sacks combined. That's why I think this is a really, really tough spot for Houston today.
Yeah, and you mentioned the running game, which is important. They're 27th in terms of percentage of pass plays called, Houston. But the thing is when they call those pass plays, they go for big chunk yards, which is why they have those deep threats like Hopkins, like Fuller was for this team. And so averaging about 8 yards per pass attempt for Deshaun Watson, you would think that's going to go down just with all the issues at wide receiver.
Unless Sammy Coates can give them something. And look, sometimes a decoy is almost as good as having a great player. You got to defend him, right? If he can just make one play, you still got to go out there and defend him. And let me say this, everybody in the NFL knows Coates can run. So you're always worried about the matchup. You put a slow corner out on Coates, and you think he's going to cover him, he'll run by him. Now, it's 50-50 whether he catches the ball. He's a little Darius Hayward-Bay. And Hayward-Bay had some good years in Pittsburgh at some certain times. Coates needs to kind of turn it around. This is a big moment for Coates, I think.
All right, we'll have more on the injury reports, of course, in the National Football League. The Minnesota Vikings have some key names that are out, but some key names that are coming back. So we'll have everything in terms of information on the injury reports, and as the inactives come out, we get more and more names. On the other side, we'll get a little bit more into that Minnesota Vikings game. Stick with us. We've got 3 hours on tap here on Betting Across America. Don't go anywhere. We're live from VSiN's new home on the East Coast, the William Hill Sportsbook at the Ocean Resort Casino.
It's Betting Across America, your new weekend guide to everything sports betting. It's VSiN, coast to coast. You can listen to us on SiriusXM Channel 204. Watch us online at vsin.com and at Fubo TV. Welcome back to Betting Across America, live from the Ocean Resort Casino in Atlantic City. If something happens in sports betting, we'll keep you informed. Now back to Michael Lombardi and Jonathan Von Tobel.
Live from VSiN's East Coast studio, smack dab in the middle of the Ocean Resort Casino at the William Hill Sportsbook. We have lots of information and a lot of news to go over, and I wanted to start with this because this is a somewhat big name. 2 big names involved in this Minnesota-Detroit game, Michael. First off, it looks like Stephon Diggs is not going to play here for the Minnesota Vikings. They said they signed Chad Beebe off of the practice squad, preseason hero, so that really leads you to think that Diggs isn't going to play, and reports are
that puts the pressure on Treadwell. He's got to show that he can play. First-round pick out of the University of Mississippi. He's got to be able to catch the ball more consistently. He shuts them down. I mean, this is a secondary for Minnesota. Minnesota should move the ball with or without Diggs in this game. if Detroit tries to get in a man-to-man game, Slay is going to play today. The key thing is, though, Ziggy Ansah, does he come back? They think Ziggy Ansah is going to play today.
Yeah, it looks like it's trending towards that.
It's trending towards play, and that's huge for Detroit just to get some pressure on Kirk Cousins. If he doesn't play, I think Minnesota has a huge day. We know Dalvin Cook's going to play in this game. Not a lot, but he's going to have an impact. And I think Detroit will give you yards. They just toughen up down in the red zone. I just think Minnesota's just way too talented. They can't lose another home game.
Yeah, it looks like, for the most part, that we're going to see Dalvin Cook on a pitch count of sorts later today. So it's just good to get him back, get him healthy, ready to go as you get closer to the end of the season. Look, and surprisingly enough, this is a matchup between two teams that are vying for the division lead in the NFC North. So this is a huge contest in terms of spinning it forward to the postseason.
And Minnesota's just, I mean, Barr's not going to play today. Minnesota's just gotten beat up with injury. They're a little bit like the Houston Texans. They've got so many injuries into the game that you wonder, and even the guys that play, you wonder how healthy they are when they do play. But I think Cousins has been magnificent. And I think Cousins can create some problems. I think he's played really well. Thielen has been outstanding. That fumble last week, I think, turned the tide in that game.
Yeah.
I think that game was going to be a different game. But that being said, I think Minnesota's defense, they've been great on third down. Matthew Stafford has not been effective on third down. You know what shocked me this week, JVT? Do you realize that Detroit's 3-1 the last 4 games going to Minnesota?
Yeah.
That's remarkable, right? And I mean, those games have mattered,
right?
They've
been great against the number too. The last week was the first time I think in 5 weeks they hadn't covered.
You know, but I still, I mean, of course, being an idiot, I'm still convinced. I think Minnesota's just too good of a team. I just don't see how Detroit's going to be able to consistently stop them from moving the football.
No, I completely agree with you, and a lot of it has to do too with the defense, right? In 4 games since that win over New England, right? The Lions got so much credit for what they did against New England on Sunday Night Football so many weeks ago. They've given up 24.5 points per game, 417 yards per game. This defense really isn't that good, and our favorite statistic, DVOA, has them ranked 31st.
Stop with that.
But for the most part, what I'm saying, every single metric, whether it's yards per play, right, points per game, anything you want to use, this isn't a good Lions defense.
No,
and I think that Kirk Cousins should be able to take advantage of it.
Right. They try to be like New England. They try to be a situational defense, not a completely good defense. I think that's where DVOA doesn't really, because if you're Bill Belichick, you're not worried about being the best total defense. You're worried about being really good in 2 minutes, which the Patriots are the #1 2-minute defense in football. Nobody knows this, right? Because nobody's studying these elements. Belichick wants to be really good in 2 minutes. He wants to be really good in the red zone, and he wants to be really good on third down in the red zone. He's all about situational defense, not total defense. So when we measure these teams, we're always talking total defense. No. It's about situational defense. Detroit's trying to do the same. They just aren't as good at it. What Minnesota's been unable to do, which is remarkable, is they turn the ball over at home. They have 11 turnovers for the season. 8 of them have come at home, which you typically, when you're a dome team, you should play better than you do on the road. I think they've got to straighten that out. I think that's what they've got to get back to. I think a little bit of it is that they don't understand who they are offensively because Cook being out. Like, what do they want to be? Do they want to, so everything falls on Cousins' lap, and I think that makes them have to become more pass-oriented than trying to be some balance and get the running back involved.
We've seen this number. This number's been really fascinating throughout the week. The Detroit Lions got down to as low as a 4.5-point dog earlier in the week. Then we're bet up. Now they're 5 or 5.5 over at the Golden Nugget in Las Vegas, 5 in some shops in Jersey as well. But that's what you're sitting at in terms of Minnesota, Detroit. And we've seen movement on the total. Opened up 51, now sitting at 48 or 48.5. So that's dropped 3 points up to this point. So which is odd for. It's not like it's a dome. So I don't know why the all the money would be on the under.
I think both teams know each other really well. They know their personnel really well, and I think that kind of plays into how these games go and why that you can stop other people. You can't really mess around with them. I mean, they're kind of predictable. You know, Mike Zimmer does a great job understanding wide receiver splits. He understands what you're going to try to do against them, and then they've been so good on third down as a defense for Minnesota, and that's where they gain the advantage.
So let's move on then to, I think, one game that got a lot of pub because of what the quarterbacks did, of course, in college. That would be Baker Mayfield versus Patrick Mahomes. Of course, everybody went back to 2 years ago when they debuted with one another, and there was, I think, 2 million yards between the two of them. Everybody loved watching the Red Raiders take on the Oklahoma Sooners. But this one is going to be somewhat different. The Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Cleveland Browns.
The Hueless Browns.
Yeah, that's a good one, yeah. The Hueless Browns. So, it's really not Hugh's fault at this point. Chiefs are an 8-point favorite.
I think everybody understands it's not Hugh's fault. We know
total
that.
of 52.5.
And then he's mad at Jimmy Haslam for firing him. I mean, I'll say this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think Hughes missed his call. calling. I think there's time with the elections on Tuesday. Hugh could run somebody's political campaign. There's no doubt. I think he could get somebody elected. I mean, because he can do it better than anybody. I mean, I think he's missed his calling. I really do.
Yeah.
This game to me is fascinating in the sense that when you look at the dynamics of what the Browns have to do, Freddie Kitchens will now call plays, and people say, well, they'll be different. Not like Freddie Kitchens isn't putting any new plays in, right?
Yeah, you can't change your whole playbook either in the span of a week.
No, right? And we know Greg, who I call Greg Alexander Haig Williams. Do you know who Alexander Haig was?
No.
So when Ronald Reagan, unfortunately, was shot, and there was some concern about the vice president, Alexander Haig went into the White House and said, I'm in charge. Basically, he announced to the world he was in charge. And that lived on. That reputation lived on. That's the way Greg Williams is. Now he's in charge. Okay, so, you know, I have to be careful with the millennials when I use these analogies. I appreciate it.
I got D.B. Cooper yesterday. I got D.B. Cooper.
I was proud of you for that one, really. My wife said that to me yesterday. So, but anyway, so Greg Williams, you know, four head coaching jobs, 11 offers. Really, seriously, nobody called him out on this. Like, I know this for certain. I've hired NFL coaches. I've been around it. We never used the United States Postal Service to hire a coach. Like, that's never happened. Like, Newman's not delivering the mail. Okay? So that's never happening. And so that's just a crock. And so he's in charge. So you got that dynamic. But what does it mean that he's in charge? I think this is the fair question. He's going to do everything to make his defense look good. And so he's going to skew it that way. When everybody knows his defense has given up a ton of yards, what they've been great at is turning the ball over. And that's what I think Kansas City has to be careful with today. Kansas City will score a lot of points if they protect the football.
Yeah, Kansas City, by the way, coming off of their first non-cover of the year. They had been perfect up to that point, didn't cover against the Denver Broncos. Kansas City, too, could be without Tyreek Hill, although we've seen reports that maybe he's – I haven't seen anything in update in terms of Tyreek Hill.
I haven't seen him either,
So we're going to have to see.
I think if he's out, then I think that changes the dynamic of the game.
And the groin muscle, of course, is going to be pretty big for a guy with speed like Tyreek Hill. So that's going to be something to watch. But when you look at this team with the Cleveland Browns, the offense has averaged 16 points per game since their loss to Oakland when they dropped 40 points, right? They have averaged 4.9 yards per play. We talked about not changing the offense too much. And on top of that, you're taking on a defense that isn't actually that good either.
Right.
So you can maybe see something to where you'll see an improvement in this offense because the unit that they're facing is not that great. And I think that's why you're seeing the hook disappear, and it's 8 in a lot of spots now. The sharps, if you will, like Cleveland, it looks like tonight.
Here's the thing, though. The Chiefs are good on third down defense. And the Chiefs can rush the passer. They can rush the passer. D. Ford can rush the passer. And Harrison, the left tackle for the Cleveland Browns, is not very good. And so that's a problem. And I think the other thing is what the numbers show is when you blitz the Browns, the quarterback rating's around a 74. Baker Mayfield's having a hard time with pressure. And when you have a bad offensive line, like the Browns do, and I know they put a lot of money in the line, but their offensive line isn't playing nearly to the level. Even though Bob Wiley was a great character on Hard Knocks, their line's not playing to the level that they paid for. There's no doubt about that. When you have a bad line, always rush 5 because that forces an offensive lineman to block one-on-one. When you only rush 4 against bad lines, they can help out. And that's what teams do against the Browns. They always are trying to rush 5 to put pressure, and Mayfield's getting attacked in a lot of those situations, and it's becoming more difficult for him to find. Plus, the other thing is, too, JVT, the Browns receivers drop the ball like you've never seen before. You know, and their number one guy, I think this is how you have to look at receivers as well. Jarvis Landry, $16 million. They paid him all this money. The guy's got 96 targets for 48 catches. Like it's like a basketball player who has to shoot 30 shots to get 30 points. Like, you can have your 30, but you're doing it in a high volume of numbers. It's the same thing with Landry, and his numbers are trending down in terms of average per catch.
We haven't seen much movement if you're looking at the total for this one as well. Opened up 52 between Cleveland and Kansas City, and right now in a lot of shops around Las Vegas, you're sitting about 52 or 52.5, so not much in terms of the movement on the total there. We'll have plenty, of course, to go. The game that you said nobody's talking about, we're going to get into that next. The Steelers and the Ravens. I can't wait. I really like one side. And there's a player in that game that has been absolutely on fire that I think really needs a lot of credit for what he's been doing for a team that's currently on a 3-game winning streak. But, of course, what everybody can't stop talking about, the Duffelbag Better, Duffelbag Boy, whatever you want to call him.
Man, I got to meet Duffelbag Boy. I'm going to Vegas one week. I'm going to go.
You're going to? Well, we actually sent somebody out to Vegas.
Yes,
we did. It looks like
awesome.
Jay-Z from Jersey. Jay-Z from Jersey actually made the trek out to Vegas. I got to see him, meet him for a couple minutes on his trek and his journey to find Duffelbag Better.
Hey, it's me. Woohoo! Jay-Z from Jersey. And I got something special in the works for next weekend. I keep hearing all these stories about this duffel bag boy, duffel bag better. It can't be true. Who is this guy? Wait a second. I gotta find this guy. Figure out who he's betting on, and I'm gonna be rich. I'm going to Vegas. I'm heading out west to search for a whale. I bet JVT can help me out. Yo, JVT.
JZ from Jersey, what's up, man?
What's going on, man? So glad to see you. I'm in town looking for Duffel Bag Boy, all right? I was wondering if you and Brent could tell me something about the guy. You know, you gotta be able to tell me something.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. I've actually never seen Brent and Duffel Bag Boy in the same room together.
I'm gonna find me the Duffel Bag Boy next weekend.
It's Betting Across America, your new weekend guide to everything sports betting. It's VSiN, coast to coast. You can listen to us on SiriusXM Channel 204. Watch us online at vsin.com and at Fubo TV. Welcome back to Betting Across America, live from the Ocean Resort Casino in Atlantic City. If something happens in sports betting, we'll keep you informed. Now back to Michael Lombardi and Jonathan Von Tobel.
VSiN's new spot on the East Coast. We're smack dab in the middle of the Ocean Resort Casino and the William Hill Sportsbook. Yes, Jonathan Von Tobel and Michael Lombardi with you. I was looking over real quick. Yeah. Not a lot of weather that's impacting some of these games. Really, the only thing we're looking at in terms of inclement conditions that have nothing to do with actual game or injury is the field that we opened up with, talking about that Miami and New York.
If it rains in Miami, which it might always do, and that'll make it just a muddier track. But I think, to me, we have to combine what we do in terms of our strengths. I see the game from a matchup standpoint, and you see the game from that betting line and your numbers, and you can kind of combine too. So we can combine both of them and do a segment called Hook and Ladder, where I can kind of hook you in and you can give me the ladder back. So I think it's the perfect dynamic for people watching on Fubo TV at home or listening on Sirius 204 to kind of learn how this thing goes together before you place any of your hard-earned cash on the situation. So let's start. Let me ask the question here first, since you're always asking me questions. what game do you see on the card from a betting standpoint that enticed you the most?
So immediately when these numbers came out, and I was looking over them Sunday night and Monday morning, I circled Minnesota. Now earlier in the week, because it was 4.5. Now it's now 5 or 5.5. So this is like the quintessential betting. Quitting, I don't want to call it a cliche because it's important, but you always have to shop for your best number, right? It was 4.5. You could have laid 4.5. Now you have to lay 5 or 5.5. But Minnesota, for me, was one I circled immediately because to me, Detroit, they were covering numbers left and right. You mentioned that they were 3-1 over the last 4 games, right? But it was a little bit of fool's gold when you looked at the teams that they'd actually played up until that point, right? I mean, even the win over New England, you took advantage of a team that was not healthy, that was really trying to get their legs underneath them, that didn't have their full stable wide receivers, right? And then you went on the road. You took the best defense that they had faced up to that point was the New York Jets before they went and took on Seattle at home. So I thought it was a little bit of a good spot to play against them, and I think now it's time to start to fade the Detroit Lions because they were covering spreads left and right, but doing it against less than stellar competition. And then Minnesota, I thought, was a little undervalued because of their loss to New Orleans. Right? You mentioned it. The fumble in the first half really swung almost everything. They possibly could have won that game, and now it's getting them at 4.5. And to me, when I saw 4.5 with Minnesota at home, thought the number should have been higher, circled it immediately.
You know, and from a football matchup standpoint, I agree with you on this game completely. Look, if you would have told Mike Zimmer last Sunday night you held Drew Brees to 120 yards passing, would you take that? He would sign that sheet immediately. He's, oh, hell yeah, I'm taking that, no doubt. So I think there's from your standpoint, I'm talking about you, or meaning the better standpoint. I think there's too much reaction to last week's games. I think everything in the NFL is about matchups. I don't think it's about last week. I think it's about the current matchup. And this game, to me, the matchup, I think, really favors Minnesota because, as we talked about earlier, is the Detroit Lions defense isn't very good. Even if Anzu comes back, they can work around him. They can work the protections. But I think Minnesota's defense against Matthew Stafford playing in the Dome without Golden Tate, we don't know where those 44 catches that Golden State had. Now, he was trending downward. He was below 10 yards in the last 3 weeks in every game. So he was trending downward. Where are those 44 catches going to come up to? I don't know. Will Theo Riddick become the slot receiver and they'll put Johnson in the backfield so they can play on both? Good idea. Will they use it? I don't know. We'll have to find out today. But I think Minnesota, I like Mike Zimmer. He knows how to play Stafford, even though the Lions are 3-1 against them in Minnesota over the last 4 years. But I think he knows how to play them, and I think there's a sense of urgency in Minnesota right now. We can't lose another home game. I mean, we're a dome team. Dome teams that are good should be 7-1 at the minimum. And that's why I like that game. That's why I think we link on that game.
All right, let's see if we can link up on this one then. What do you have in terms of one of the games that you circled immediately when you were watching all 22? You're like, all right, I got this.
I like the Atlanta Falcons versus the Washington Redskins. Okay, Washington's hurt. Trent Williams is not going to play. He's got the wrist surgery or the hand surgery that he's going to miss. Chris Thompson, to me, generates the offense. I am not a guy that is a proponent of one-dimensional teams or running games. I think the running games are just overblown in the NFL. I think every time you turn on a TV, they all tell you whoever runs the ball today is going to win. I think it's
run
a crock.
Set up the pass.
Yeah, run it, right. But I look at passing games, and Alex Smith the last 3 weeks is 4.55 yards per attempt. He's 7.12, 5.56. He's played the worst of his career for Jay Gruden in the Washington Redskins. Okay, I think their offense is all about Adrian Peterson. Who would have thought that, right? I mean, who would have thought that this summer sitting on the beach here in Atlantic City that Adrian Peterson was going to be the mainstay of the Redskins offense? He wasn't even a job. So I think the Redskins offense isn't very good. They miss receivers. The line now without Trent Williams is a problem. And I think Atlanta can attack the secondary of the Washington Redskins. I think Josh Norman is way overrated as a man-to-man player. I think he was overpaid and overrated. He was always a cover 2 corner. I think Quentin Dunbar is going to come back. He can be attacked. I think Greg Stovall, I believe his name is, the slot corner, was getting attacked last week by the Giants continuously. So if you line up in 3 receivers against Washington and you can handle the front, you got a chance to move the ball. And I think that plays into the strength of Atlanta's offense. And I think because they can't throw the ball, it plays in the strengths of Atlanta defense.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you for the most part. Like, to me, the lean a little bit here was towards Atlanta. I do find it fascinating that for 3 straight home games now, the Washington Redskins are going to get bet against. Remember, the previous 2, Carolina and Dallas, had actually flipped to the point where the road team was a favorite. It doesn't look like it's going to happen here, but the number is telling you that the Falcons are the better team. It's actually 2.5 or 2, depending on where you look. And remember, if they were getting 3 points, that would be essentially a pick on a neutral field. But because it's 2.5 and just underneath 3, the Falcons are going to be the better team on a neutral field, and bettors are telling you that now that it's 2. I lean towards the Falcons. You mentioned the offense for Washington. What drives me nuts, when you look at in the NFL in today's day and age, right, going to what you look at every single time, the fact that for 3 straight weeks you have a quarterback that has thrown for under 200 yards and you haven't touched the 300-yard mark in passing yards once this year, that is bad. Right. That means you have, like you said, a one-dimensional offense that they're overly reliant on a run game. And this is, by the way, a Jay Gruden team that usually, even in that 4-12 year, they're racking up pass yards like nobody's business. So it worries me that this offense is so one-dimensional. If I had to pick a side, despite the fact that we know about what's going on with the defense, how banged up Atlanta is, how the running game really has been ineffective, and Matt Ryan has quietly had, I thought, if you look at his numbers, I was going over them last night, 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, hasn't thrown an interception, I think, since week 2. The guy's been phenomenal.
Right, and they come out in 11 personnel, 1 back, 1 tight end, and they can attack what the Redskins really can't defend, which is the passing game. Washington's matchups across the board with their corner situation is not very good.
Yep.
And so I like that there. And then when the fact that the Redskins are not a great adjustment team. They've only scored 9 points in the 3rd quarter all season. So they don't, once they show you their game plan, there's really no other game plan they have in store. This is the way they're going to play the game. They were so fortunate to beat Carolina. I mean, Cam Newton would wish he had that 4th down pass back in that game because he's got a chance to throw it to Greg Olsen for a 1st down and probably wins the game. And then last week, you know, they play the Giants. The Giants, as bad as they are right there. Eli has to throw a red zone interception again.
And I think he was sacked 6-7 times. I mean, he didn't have any time whatsoever.
And then I think the other thing is Washington can't sell out games anymore. There's no home field advantage there. I mean, this isn't like playing in RFK Stadium when I was a kid, when I would watch the Redskins and you could hear them sing Hail to the Redskins and the place was just rocking. This is not I don't think anybody buys the Redskins. I don't buy the Redskins. Even if they win today, I'm still not buying the Redskins.
Yeah, John Murray, by the way, of the Westgate Superbooks, is going to join us later in the show. Big Washington Redskins fan, and he agrees with you, at least in terms of the home field advantage for the Washington Redskins.
You know, now the other game I want to talk to you about that I really like, and I think this has been sleeping a little bit. I love Seattle today at home against the Los Angeles Chargers.
We're agreeing too much.
Okay, well, I think when those two things happen, that's a good thing, right? Yeah. I think when you get the football matchup and the betting matchup collide, like we agreed last week that Carolina had no business being a home dog to one of the worst road teams in football, the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, that was really stupid. Like, that didn't make any sense to me when I looked at the card. This game, to me, is another game that I see Seattle trending upward.
Yeah.
I don't see Los Angeles having played anybody that I would say, wow, they beat them. They're really a good team. I know Phillip Rivers is having an MVP-like season. There's no doubt. You look at his numbers, he's been incredible. But coming off a bye is a little bit like opening the season. Like Anthony Lynn and his staff have struggled in first games of the season. It just happens. They've struggled against Kansas City in the opener. I think the way Seattle has run the ball, over 800 yards the last 3 weeks running the football, the way they've converted 3rd downs, I think this is a game that Seattle, because they're playing at home, I think this is Seattle for me.
I would completely agree. Now, this is the favorable spot for Phillip Rivers, right? For the most part, he has been pretty good in the road dog role. But to me, 1.5 is not enough to consider playing him in a road dog role, considering you're catching 1 or 1.5 points. It's a coin flip spot right now in this road game with the number. And
can I say this from a betting standpoint? Aren't you nervous with that 1.5 point being such a tight margin, the way Los Angeles special teams gives away 1 point at just a drop of a hat?
Yeah, no, I would completely agree with that. That's a huge factor in it, especially obviously with the missed kicks, and not even just the kicks. We've seen special teams mishaps in terms of muff punts from them. I mean, almost every single aspect of special teams has been an issue with the Los Angeles Chargers. But you mentioned to me the key here. The Seahawks have been trending upwards. I thought their defense from week 1 outplayed their offense for the first 3 weeks.
Right.
They're forcing turnovers, right? And now they have started to get healthier. KJ Wright popped up on the injury report, but he's going to be fine. He actually got upgraded on Friday. He is going to play. Really, the only issue for Seattle, if you look at it from an injury perspective, is at the running back position. Top running back maybe could miss the game today. So then you have Rashad Penny, who's going to come in, who's a physical runner, and they run the ball. I think they're the second team in terms of running the ball the most. They have committed to running the ball, and they've been effective at it. So Look, I think Seattle back at home with a quarterback who has been playing absolutely out of his mind as well with Russell Wilson, finding guys downfield. He doesn't turn the ball over. We know how he can extend plays with his feet. There's no pass rush yet with the LA Chargers. I think this sets up really nicely. You get a short number with Seattle at home, who's playing well and trending upwards with a healthy defense. I think there's nothing else you can look at here. I like Seattle a lot.
I mean, we watched it here in the book, right?
Yeah.
Tennessee ran for 164 yards on them. I mean, look, I think the Chargers are a talented team offensively. Melvin Ingram will play today. They don't have Bosa still, so I don't know where they are. You know, James has been outstanding in the secondary, but he's just one player. This is a game, funny, JVT, that features two of the same exact schemes defensively. So every day Phillip Rivers at practice during training camp was practicing against Seattle's scheme with his defense. The same thing with Seattle. Seattle was practicing against the Chargers. So they'll know each other's schemes really well. But for me, the Chargers have yet to prove that they're a real good team. Beating San Francisco didn't prove it to me.
No.
Beating Oakland doesn't prove
Buffalo,
or beating Cleveland with Hugh in Cleveland.
Yep.
And you know,
they smoked them. Yep.
They smoked them. So I'm waiting for them to show. This is going to be a tough spot to play at crowd noise. Paul Allen's death be the first time they've played at home since their owner has passed away. That's an emotional time. I'm sure they're going to do something to honor the great Paul Allen there in the stadium. I think Pete's got a team that he likes. I think Pete Carroll has quietly done a Coach of the Year job there. Sean McVay is going to get all the votes, and Sean Payton, but Pete Carroll has changed his team, and I think it's for the better.
I would agree with that, by the way. Again, from the start, the offense caught up to the defense, right? As we sit here now in Week 9. It wasn't the other way around because this defense had lost so much. No, that defense was playing well, and they were hampered by injury from Week 1, and now everything's starting to come together. I would agree. I think it looks like a quiet Coach of the Year job.
Yeah, and I think what Pete Carroll did, Pete Carroll made hard decisions.
Yeah.
And when you're a leader, it's always difficult to make tough decisions. So Pete Carroll fired Darrell Bevel, who he likes. You know, and he fired Tom Cable as one of his best friends. And those two moves have improved the team because they needed some fresh ideas offensively. Not that I think Brian Schottenheimer is the greatest offensive coordinator in football, but they've changed the running game. Mike Solari is the line coach over Tom Cable and has given them a diversity in their run game. That's why they're running the ball. They're not just running outside zone anymore. Yep. Meanwhile, Oakland, who's hired Tom Cable, are struggling to run the football because they're one-dimensional. And I think Oakland's got to look at Tom and say, hey, Tom, look, it was struggling up in Seattle. It's struggling here. Maybe we need to change what we're doing a little bit as well.
All right, so let's move on to our last play here, and I think another one that we might be in agreement on, and this has actually been insane in terms of the line move. We now have 1.5 or 2 in terms of the Baltimore Ravens being favored over the Pittsburgh Steelers, arguably the hottest team in the National Football League in this point, and they have, I think, the hottest player, and that would be James Conner. During this win streak, 64 attempts on the ground, 367 yards, 6 touchdowns, overall 77 touches. He averages 7 yards per touch, and he has scored 7 touchdowns. This guy has been absolutely insane for Pittsburgh, which is why they won 3 straight.
It's amazing. This is the Steeler way, right? So Mike Wallace won't take the big contract. Oh, we have a kid named Antonio Brown here. We'll give it to. There goes Mike Wallace. Mike Wallace's career has never been the same. Same thing's going to happen to Le'Veon Bell. I like Don Martindale. We call him Wink. Don and I were together in Oakland. He's the defensive coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens, and he had the greatest comment of the week this week where he talked about, hey, they don't need Le'Veon Bell. That's why he stayed there on jet skis in Miami.
And that's why they drafted this kid,
That's why they drafted Conner. Conner's averaging more yards per pass attempt as a pass catcher than Le'Veon Bell has. So he gives them a dimension in the passing game, which they need badly, right? And he's also, as you mentioned, run the ball. I think Baltimore is one of those teams that nobody really knows what they really are. Cincinnati put 21 on them in the first half. They lost there. They've lost 4 games. A good team's not 4-4 at the midpoint point. I think offensively is really where their problems are. I think they have no loose play back. That's why they had to trade for Tyrone Montgomery. And I think that element is really missing in their offense because they put so much on Flacco. And Flacco needs a back he can throw the ball to on a check down, and the guy can make somebody miss and go. He doesn't have that. That wasn't Buck Adams. Buck Adams was horrible in that role. And it's really not Alex Collins, who might not play today, which is why I think the line's starting to move a little bit in favor of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and to take the hook and ladder perspective, right, you know, with everything you had in terms of on the field, the betting number was 3 earlier in the week. It was 3 for most of the week. So you could have grabbed that field goal, which is a key number in football, of course. So that's what I played earlier in the week. I got Pittsburgh plus the 3. Now, at this point, it's now 1.5 or 2. You can't really recommend taking Pittsburgh at 2 or 1.5 considering you lost out on the field goal plus 3.
Yep.
So there you go, hook and ladder, going back and forth between the two of us. We have plenty more to get to. We have 3 hours. Well, actually, now it's down to 2 already. We're already young. We're almost done with the first hour.
This goes so fast.
Well, so we're going to have plenty to get to. We still have a lot of more key games. So we haven't even touched on the Rams and the Saints yet, so we'll have to break that down. We have more injuries and inactives to get through. Stick with us here. We're leading up to kickoff. We are live from the William Hill Sportsbook, VSiN's new studio on the East Coast.
It's Betting Across America, your new weekend guide to everything sports betting. It's VSiN, coast to coast. You can listen to us on SiriusXM Channel 204. Watch us online at vsin.com and at Fubo TV.
Like any other business, you have to keep reintroducing yourself to new things to keep people excited, and we found one, in-progress betting. 30 years ago, no one even knew what that was about. Now, as games are going on, we come to a timeout or a delay of game, we post odds for those particular games that you're watching in front of you. So what it makes easier for people who come in a little bit late, they can catch up on betting their favorite team because we're always posting odds on the board. It's not a big limit sport. It's only $1,000 in most places, but it keeps the interest there. So I can only tell you that something that maybe we shied away from 10 years ago, we welcome it now.
Some of the challenges with booking in play is about the synchronization of when you're coming into the end of a period, such as into the first quarter or into the halftime. You want to make sure that what you're going to offer from a halftime number also is in sync with what the in-game number is. Sometimes there's some arbitrage opportunities there that you need to manage.
Yeah, so in-game wagering, once that game kicks off, you know, not only are we just two guys below me, so there's three of us on a Saturday and Sunday. So as soon as that game kicks off, we're not only doing the regular games and the regular halftimes, we got one guy just sitting there banging away on a Saturday, booking all those games in-game. We got another guy watching all the mobile app, all the phone wagering coming in. So it's quite busy for us. We're really, really busy with in-game, but we got to do it. It's the way the whole world's going right now with in-game play.
The in-progress option that books are offering now is becoming more and more popular, and it's going to be more prominent as we move down the line. I think our biggest challenge as bookmakers is finding a reliable automated source for the U.S. market. What we're looking at right now, I don't think is acclimated to the U.S. market. So that's going to be our biggest challenge, is finding that partner that we see that has adjusted and more or less Americanized to the betting market here. Once we find that, it's going to take a lot of relief off the manpower that it takes to do the in-progress wagering option ourselves.
Welcome back to Betting Across America, live from the Ocean Resort Casino in Atlantic City. If something happens in sports betting, we'll keep you informed. Now back to Michael Lombardi and Jonathan Von Tobel.
Live from our new home on the East Coast, you should know by now it's the Ocean Resort Casino, and it is smack dab in the middle of said casino at the William Hill Race Sportsbook.
Hey, how good was it looking out the window this morning at the ocean? I mean, how beautiful it is here. I mean, really, seriously.
That is actually kind of weird, because I actually woke up this morning and opened up the window, and I was looking out there, and I was like, wow, this is actually really nice. It's a great view.
You know, it's November, too. I mean, usually that water gets a little choppy out there, and it's a little rough, but no, it's a beautiful day. I mean,
there were boats out there. I never see boats outside my window.
Well, it's because you haven't been here in the summertime. I mean, you know, you come here in the summertime, there'll be a bunch of boats out there. It's a little chilly out there now, but the weather's been so great, and the weekend of football is going to be even better. Yeah. I mean, today's going to be an amazing day in football.
It is, but we do have to get through some of the dregs of the schedule. So I'm going to, with that, you know, don't stick around. You can still bet on all these, all right? You can still make money on some of the bad games.
Listen up. Just listen up, right?
So let's
only
listen
bet
up.
As much as you want to win.
That's right. And let's listen up and break this down in the NFC South. Bucks and Panthers. Now, this is a I find this really interesting, because if you look at the numbers, Ryan Fitzpatrick, of course, if you've been under a rock, he is going to start at quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I would think, just spinning this ahead a little bit, that we're done with the Jameis Winston era in Tampa Bay.
Well, let me tell you
why. Unless there's an injury.
No, let me tell you why. I think your thought process is really good. Okay, so the Bucs management decided, in their infinite wisdom, to extend the option for the 5th year for Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
And once they did that, they guaranteed his contract for injury. Okay? That's a $20 million plus hit. Mm-hmm. So that contract is now only guaranteed for injury. Injury only. It's not skill. Contracts to be fully guaranteed have to be skill, injury, and salary cap. Right now there's just one component that's guaranteed, injury. if they put him on the field and he plays and he, God forbid, were to hurt his knee or have a throwing shoulder or something like that where he could not pass his physical in March, his exit physical, that contract is guaranteed. They can't pull it off the table. They can't pull it. When the Redskins guaranteed the 5th year for RG3, they never played him. They made him the 3rd-string quarterback. Dan Snyder just felt, for some reason, he was going to give away the money, give $14 million away. Why, I have no idea. You would have to ask Dan Snyder. But that's really why I don't think we'll see Winston again, and that's why I think what happened last week is Bucs management said, wait a minute, we're exposed here at $20 million. We're not going to – we lose $20 million next year on the cap. There's going to be some hell to pay.
So let me ask you this, because I think when I look at the numbers between these two guys, Fitzpatrick, to me, big play is the thing you think of with Fitzpatrick. He can actually challenge the ball downfield. Jameis Winston in this offense, since he took over the starting job, has averaged about 7.4 yards per pass attempt. Fitzpatrick is up near 10 yards per pass attempt. We saw this in the first 3 weeks when it was Fitzmagic, when he was throwing the ball everywhere. He took advantage of Deshaun Jackson. He took advantage of Mike Evans. He knew that these big guys, he could find them downfield. They actually have weapons when you look at this roster. And I think that's why I'm extremely intrigued about what's happening here. The Bucs catching 6 points. I get why bettors would be on the Panthers, who opened up as a 5.5-point favorite. Defense isn't good. But I think this offense changes with Ryan Fitzpatrick. He had a bad game against Chicago, right? That's not a bad defense, and that was Khalil Mack was kind of at the height of his powers. And now, in this spot against the Carolina defense that you have talked about, can kind of be susceptible at points. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick with like a renewed kind of vigor here that can actually throw the ball downfield. I'm going to watch this game pretty closely because I think this offense changes with Fitzpatrick pulling the trigger.
I do. I just think, to me, Tampa Bay looks to me so disorganized from a fundamentally.
And I get that.
I mean, Dirk Cotter's not a quality head coach. I think they need better there. But when you look at the matchups over the last times in Carolina, the Bucs have only scored 46 points up there. That's not been a kind place for Tampa Bay to go play. So Carolina is going to play mostly zone in the game. And what they're going to say to the Tampa Bay Bucs and the great Ryan Fitzpatrick is, look,
it's magic.
You're going to have to execute 10-play drives. You're not going to be able to beat us with just one over the top. We're not giving you the Deshaun Jackson 80-yard. Prove you can win on 3rd down. Prove your offensive line can hold up over 10-play drives. And if you can, you'll beat us.
Yeah, and 2 consecutive wins, by the way, for the Carolina Panthers. They're 4-1 over the last 5 games. That's going back to September 23rd. Carolina's really been playing well.
I mean, Carolina, look.
Newton's been great.
I mean, Newton's been great. Yep. I mean, Newton's been great. They've managed this offensive line. Christian McCaffrey's been outstanding. I mean, Funchess has been really good. They've been really, really good. I think they've been undervalued. I really do. I think they've been I think they're undervalued with this line here as well.
Yep. Man, can't wait to see them take on the Saints later in the season because that is going to be one with the NFC South possibly on the line. By the way, Bucs 3-1 against the spread. Their last 4 against the Carolina Panthers. Maybe a trend to keep an eye on. 1 hour down, 2 more to go. Remember, we are live from the Ocean Resort Casino, VSiN's new home on the East Coast. We're going to be with you all the way up to the kickoff of the early games of the National Football League before sending it back to Vegas. So stick around. 2 more hours left to go here on Betting Across America.
It's Betting Across America, your new weekend guide to everything sports betting. It's VSiN, coast to coast. You can listen to us on SiriusXM Channel 204. Watch us online at vsin.com and at Fubo TV.
The Breeders' Cup World Championships takes place this coming Friday and Saturday at Churchill Downs. And this week only now, ExpressBet upping the ante for our VSiN listeners. A $200 sign-up bonus. You got to get in on this. $200 in free cash to bet the races. Go to ExpressBet online betting account. Okay, use the promo code now, Brent200. Sign up for an ExpressBet online betting account. Use the promo code Brent200. Wager $200 and then they apply the $200 bonus. It's like betting the races with house money. Promo code Brent200. Breeders' Cup, of course, 14 championship races showcasing the best horses in the world, making it a betting opportunity you cannot afford to pass up. So go to expressbet.com to learn more. And then next week here at VSiN, of course, Vinny and Ron and all the guys, they'll be talking about the upcoming Breeders' Cup. But remember that promo code, Brent200.
The Supreme Court will allow states to legalize sports betting.
Justices ruled 7-2.
The court struck down a federal law that banned gambling on sports games in most of the country.
The big headline is that this really paves the way for states across the country to legalize sports betting.
This is going to be a seismic shift.
We are already seeing the market react.
Everything is going to happen state by state.
Competition is thriving.
Of sports
There's a renaissance that's been happening.
Jobs have been created.
There's a lot of new technologies, in-game betting.
Any stock, a publicly traded company that deals in the gaming world, they're all rising.
I've learned this in the NFL. Stop looking at the stats and watch the tape.
Sometimes you want to go against the money.
Belichick was obsessed with trying to find a goal line defense.
Pigskin pontification.
He's out there just throwing.
Give me the points.
He's a robot.
They've been covered about a 64% clip.
That's what a real football team looks like.
We're just seeing a revolution here.
Live from the new epicenter of East Coast sports betting, from the Ocean Resort Casino and the William Hill Sportsbook in Atlantic City, New Jersey, it's Betting Across America, your new go-to destination for everything sports betting. It's VSiN Coast to Coast. Here are your hosts, Michael Lombardi and Jonathan Von Tobel.
That's right. Ocean Resort Casino is the spot in Atlantic City. We got 2 hours left on the program. Yes, I am told by production, I do have to pass the message along. It is, in fact, 11 o'clock Eastern, but I will say this. It is 2018, and if for some reason you are still wacky with your time, that's on you because technology is taking care of everything.
Yeah, like, I mean, you just woke up this morning, right? You look at your iPhone, look at your phone, you know what time it was. You have to worry about the blinking thing going on in your alarm. Like, who has an alarm clock anymore?
That's
seriously.
Right. If you have to
I'd hate to be in the alarm
anything,
clock business, really. Seriously, you're broke right now.
If you have to physically move anything to change time, as a millennial, I have to say, catch up. Let's go.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not a millennial, but I at least know how to use an iPhone. I mean, I'm making progress. I'm somewhat getting into the 21st century, I think that. But, hey, JVT, look, yesterday was a great day in college football. We had Johnny P on the show. I'm telling everybody who hears this on Sirius 204, if you're not listening to 10 to 12 on college football, you're losing money. I mean, you're just losing money because there was some gimme putts out there that you could have had on, which you had yesterday. Alabama, that was a gimme putt, right?
Oh, yeah. Alabama was that was finally, because like I brought this up on the show before, and John Murray was going to join us in the next hour. We are populating. We were about to die on the hill of LSU is not that good. And we had done this because he comes on every Tuesday as part of Between the Sidelines on VSiN. And we've talked about this every week where I think LSU is not that good. And when they take on a team that can actually play defense and score, it is going to be trouble. And I thought about it, and I was like, I've died on this hill every single week, but if I have to go down with Alabama and Tua, I'm going to go down with Tua and Alabama, and they did not let me down.
Let me ask you this question. Just hypothetically, say before the game, that Nick Saban would have switched sidelines and gone over to the LSU sideline, and Eddie would have come on over to the –
would have grabbed 14. Actually, well,
what do you think that line would have done then?
It is curious how much a coach is worth to a line. Saban's one of those coaches that is worth something, but the switch, I would say that Alabama would still be favored, but it'd be like – I don't know, like 3? It's got to be something ridiculous.
I mean, just like, look, that's college football right there. I mean, look – I mean, LSU is one of the greatest football programs in the history of college football. But at some point, they're going to have to get in the 21st century and realize football is becoming chess.
Yeah.
It's chess on grass, okay? And if you don't have a chess master, and if you have somebody playing checkers, you're going to lose to the chess master. It's just what we run that ad all the time on VSiN about the bicycle and the tricycle. The little girl rides the bike, and, you know, who's going to win the race, right?
Yeah.
The 10 speed of the little tricycle. Yeah. That's what we're dealing with here, okay? But every time I hear that ad, I'm thinking, Nick Saban, Ed Orgeron.
It was perfect leading up to this weekend. And I was even telling Trev, we were watching the game yesterday. When you were watching Joe Burrow, it was quick slant, out in the flat, little hitch. There was nothing whatsoever, throwing everything underneath. And when he would challenge the ball downfield, it wasn't anything intricate. There wasn't route concepts. It was just go, and I'm going to throw it as hard as I can, and hopefully you get it.
Could you imagine, think about this situation. Could you imagine me walking into Al Davis's office and saying, Mr. Davis, look, I have a really good idea. I think we should take the 4th-string quarterback from Ohio State and start him here at the Oakland Raiders. He would look at me and send me back out the room, and I would have welts all over me. I mean, like, you're LSU.
Yep.
You're LSU.
The quarterback's been an issue for them. They don't recruit it.
They don't want it. Yep. That's the problem. No, it's not that they don't. It's a problem. They don't want it. You are what you want to become. If you don't want it. You want to still play in 1950, 1960 football. You want to hand the ball off.
Yep.
You think you're going to win with the running game. You think you're going to be able to beat a good team running the football.
Speaking of maybe gimme putts, by the way, Clemson 39 and or 39.
They couldn't have made that line. We said it here. They couldn't have made that line high
absolutely
enough.
Smoked Louisville. And
Louisville's got serious issues.
Yeah, they do. But it gave Duffleback Better at least one winner. His 50K2 teamer. He had Toledo minus 19.5.
What's he win on that? What's his total on that?
And then Clemson minus 39. 50K2 teamer. To pull that up, a 50K2 teamer is a good amount. And he also lost a 20K3 teamer.
But he made it up. So he's ahead for the day, right?
Oh, yeah.
Do we know what his action is going today? Do we know what he's up to today?
I haven't seen what to look that up. Maybe Triv can look it up, too, on Twitter and see if Duffleback Better is active.
Does he have a Twitter account?
No, I don't think Duffleback Better has a Twitter account. Maybe we can make one and run like a faux
I think we should do whatever we have to do to get Duffleback Boy here.
Like a faux Polini.
I think we should do whatever we have to do to get him here. I mean, seriously, I want to meet this Duffleback guy. I want to know how he does it.
By the way, odds on a two-team parlay are about like 13-5 or something around there. So
okay.
Use that. All right, let's get to a game that I think is going to be on a lot of people's minds. And arguably, this is how deep the slate is today in the National Football League. Think about this. Rams and Saints couldn't be flexed into the Sunday Night Football game. Like, that's how great the schedule is because Sunday Night Football is already loaded because you have Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers. But I would argue, I mean, this team, or this game, if you want to watch one, it's got to be this one. The Rams right now are 1.5 favorite on the road, taking on the New Orleans Saints. The Saints, of course, have been absolutely rocking since the opening week. They've won 6 straight. They're 5-2 against the number. And I don't think there's a team that's playing better. What they did last year, I'm going to tie this in, of course, to today, but I thought what they did last year, and you're a front office guy, and I think you can appreciate it, they drafted, I don't want to say almost perfectly, but they hit on almost every key piece that they drafted in the draft. They have this perfect influx and mix of young guys and veterans in different positions, and it's paying dividends, and they changed the way, this is why Sean Payton, and this is a matchup of great play callers too, Sean Payton changed the way that they're doing this offensively. They went to, we're going to be more based on this running attack, and we're going to take pressure off of Drew Brees. And when Drew Brees, the most effective quarterback in the freaking history of the National Football League, has a running game to rely on like he has now, it's been paying dividends, and they've been arguably the best team in the National Football League the last season and a half.
Well, and the reason they are is because they play Canadian football.
Yeah.
They get first downs and 2 downs. They try to stay out of third down as much as possible. And I think what no one's written about, everybody talks about Drew Brees and Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas, all great players. But this offensive line for the New Orleans Saints is by far the strength of their team. I mean, they can come through the line, and they can control the line of action. I mean, Larry Wolford at left guard. I mean, you've got Armstead, the left tackle, are really good players, and they can create movement up front.
They draft Ramczyk. Like that's the moves I'm talking
the right
about.
Yep. I mean, the game's won in football in the offensive and defensive lines. And the Rams have put, and the Saints have put their resources there to go along with other things. I mean, think about it. They take Teddy Bridgewater for a 3rd-round pick from the – how many other teams need quarterbacks? And yet they already have one, and they're taking one. Smart move, right? So I think this game really comes down to a couple factors. This is a playoff-style game, and whenever you play a playoff-style game, it always comes down to 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. It's those short down distance plays that can we control the ball or we don't control the ball. I think both coaches today will be aggressive on all 3rd and short calls. I think you'll see 4th downs going for it. I think this is a playoff atmosphere. Both teams are good in the special teams. Both your DVOA numbers have both special teams ranked extremely in the same area. Both teams don't punt. The Saints have only punted 17 times. The Rams have only punted 22 times. So this game's going to go back and forth. I like the Saints only because I think they're playing home, and I think the one area that the Rams are not effective in is 3rd down in the red zone. They're 5 for 26 in the red zone. They've had 26 3rd downs in the red zone. They've only converted 5 of them. They're one of the worst in football in that area. And those are 4-point plays. Could you imagine if they would have converted 8 more, how many points more they would have scored? Remarkable. And that's why I think the Saints will win today.
So let me ask you this, because I think there's weaknesses, of course, for both of these teams, and it's both similar things. It's the defense, right? I think people, for some reason, I was watching one of your favorite programs in the morning, Good Morning Football, right? And I'm sitting there watching it, and they're talking about how, you don't want to run into the teeth of this Rams defense. No, you do. That's like the weakest part of this Rams defense. Just because you have names there does not mean they're automatically
that's
good.
All people look at is they look at the name, they don't watch the tape. I mean, first of all, this Rams defense does not play well. If you can handle Donald, which is a challenge, and it'll be a challenge for the Saints today, but the crowd noise is going to be a factor for the Saints. It's in their favor. The snap count favors the home team, especially in a dome stadium, so they can do that. you could throw the ball on this Ram team. I mean, the Rams, look, everybody's sitting here saying the Rams are great on defense, but, if Rodgers would have got that ball back, the Packers would have won.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody, they're talking out of both sides of their mouth.
Yep.
And so, to me, I think that is the fly in the ointment for the Rams, is how good is this defense?
And if you can, as the Saints, take control of the ball, run it down their throat, control the time of possession, you keep that offense off the field, everything that works in your favor. The one thing that worries you, I think, with New Orleans is the pass defense hasn't been as good as it was last year. And that's where I think they're going to get got, if you will, in this game.
Right.
If the Rams and Jared Goff can get big plays, if they're off the field long times, like New Orleans gets control like they want, that's fine. But if you give a big play, then that, of course, is going to negate everything you're doing in terms of clock control.
But this, as a fact, Jared Goff averages over 10 yards per pass attempt at home.
Yep.
Okay? He's down to 8 on the road. So there's a 2-yard difference in his big play explosion, home versus away. That's significant. The other factor, the Saints have played way less man-to-man than they did last year.
Mm-hmm.
They realize their corner situation. Now, they still engage in man-to-man, but they're playing smarter. They're trying to keep the ball from being thrown over their head. That's what cost them the Tampa Bay game. That's what almost cost them the Browns game. They're keeping the ball, and they're saying, look, we'll live for another day. And that's the strategy they have to enact, because if they can get the Rams into the red zone, if the Rams move the ball into the red zone, this favors the Saints, because we know the Rams are not been effective on third down in the red zone. If you give them a one-play 70-yard touchdown, there's no third downs to worry about in the red zone.
By the way, the Rams, too, somewhat ineffective against the number for the most part. They're 4-3-1 against the spread. They are 1-3-1 in their last 5 games against the number.
I thought this was interesting, too. I think that what Sean McVay said here, he said, I appreciate the aggressive nature that Coach Payton comes with after people. You were even looking at the first drive against Baltimore. That's a 20-play drive, 2 fourth down, the mindset of never being afraid to fail and always attacking. I think that's what both coaches are really effective at doing. And I think that's why this game is going to be a playoff game. McVay and Payton are both offensive coaches who, if they were here at this casino, they'd have no problem playing blackjack, and they would play it risk-free. I mean, they're going to go out there and try to do it all.
And despite the fact that this is expected to be an offensive showdown, shootout, whatever have you, total opened up 60.5, now sitting at 57.5 in a lot of shops right now. There's still
Why
twos
do you
out
think
there
that
too,
line shifted that way?
Playing in the under, 60.5 is a lot of points. But for it to drop 3 total points right now, it's even 57 over the South Point if you're watching the broadcast on Fubo TV or the VSiN app or VSiN.com. To be honest with you, I could not venture a guess, because you have these two teams not only are offensive juggernauts, but you have two defenses that are susceptible to giving up points.
But the Rams defense is very good against the run. And I think what you have to do when you play the Rams is you have to play the run. You got to make Gurley have it where he can't just get his game on track. That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
The other factor here is Aaron Kromer, the offensive line coach for the Los Angeles Rams, has done a great job. Kromer was first Sean Payton. They went to college together. They're best friends. He was on the staff. Remember, he was the head coach of the Saints during that time when the great Greg Williams and the Bounty Gate all occurred. So, I think that offensive line for the Rams has played really well, but the Saints do play run defense, and you're going to have to play it so that you can take away, and what Mike Pettin did last week for the Packers is try to limit the explosive plays down the field, but you got to play the run first.
Yes, you do. We have plenty more to go, though. Of course, that's our game of focus, because I cannot wait to watch what's going to happen.
And then we got the Packers-Patriots tonight.
Which is what we're going to get to next, because we do have two quarterbacks going at it, and of course, this is in Gillette. You have the Green Bay Packers, who are 0-3 on the road. You have the New England Patriots, who have been undefeated at home up to this point and beating teams by a wide margin. What's going to give here in this matchup between two of the greatest quarterbacks we've seen play the game? We're going to get into that next. This is Betting Across America. We're live from the Ocean Resort Casino, the William Hill Sportsbook. We're on the East Coast. It's VSiN's new home. Don't go anywhere. We got about an hour and a half until kickoff here on VSiN.
It's Betting Across America, your new weekend guide to everything sports betting. It's VSiN, coast to coast. You can listen to us on SiriusXM Channel 204. Watch us online at VSiN.com and at Fubo TV.
That includes our 24 full coverage of.
Welcome back to Betting Across America, live from the Ocean Resort Casino in Atlantic City. If something happens in sports betting, we'll keep you informed. Now back to Michael Lombardi and Jonathan Von Tobel.
They're lining up and getting ready to go, trying to get those tickets in. We're a little over 90 minutes away from kickoff of the early games. It's bustling here, and I'm sure it is bustling over at the South Point Sportsbook.
You know why it's bustling?
Huh.
Because I think everybody heard the Browns had great practice this week based on Hugh not being there.
Is there any team?
That's the report out. I'm just repeating a report that was cited by NFL Network that the Browns have had 3 of their best practice. Now, you know one thing, when you work for Al Davis, when reports always come out, Al Davis would always challenge you to figure out where the report came from. It was a Lyndon Johnson thing when he was in the White House. He would always call back and ask, Ben Bradley, then you don't know who Ben Bradley, the editor of the Washington Post.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so anyway, they wanted to know who the sources were. Well, you got to figure out where this source came from. But the Browns apparently the Browns have had 3 of their best practices this week.
Wow, interesting.
So, and DeMarcus Randall, the former safety that started, is a healthy scratch. Yeah. So Greg Alexander Haig-Williams is putting his reference in, and and he's making sure his presence is felt as the head coach. He's the head coach.
Is there any team leading up to a week that doesn't have a great practice, other than maybe the New England Patriots?
Well, sometimes, when I was there, sometimes you'd have bad ones. But, I mean, look.
Publicly, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, every single week, it's like it's like the baseball joke, right? Going into a baseball season, like the old adage is like the guy's never been in better shape, or he's in the best shape of his life going into a season kind of a deal.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's week 9. You only put pads on once a week now this time of the year. You can't put pads on. And plus so many guys are hurt. We'll go over the list here now. As so many guys are hurt, it's hard to even have them practice it. You can have a good practice, but if half your practice squad's doing the practicing, does it really matter?
Yeah, exactly. And this is why we have like a big list of key names of injuries that we're keeping track of, and one of which we'll get to because it is involving the Sunday night game. But we do have it if you're watching on Fubo TV, if you're watching on the VSiN app, or if you're listening on Sirius XM 204, of course we'll go with you here. But Khalil Mack at the top of this list in terms of an injury report. It looks like he is out. The reports are he was going to try in terms of preseason workouts, but doubtful, very doubtful to play, and the Bears prep to play without him. So we have him out here as out. Now, doubtful is Stephon Diggs, but more reports are coming, and it looks like he is trending towards not playing for the Minnesota Vikings, taking on the Detroit Lions. And then we have the 2 Washington Redskins members, Jamison Crowder and Trent Williams. Both are out as well.
And Chris Thompson, the running back, is doubtful too. So that's another key one. We know Williams, the left tackle, is out. I mean, for sure. And Jamison Crowder, I think they can overcome his injury. Hurst plays, and he does a decent job. But the Thompson one is really that nickel running back, especially considering that AP is not really great in the pass game. I know he had a 7-yard touchdown pass last week against the Giants. That's a significant. To me, Chris Thompson makes this Redskin offense more effective, especially with a checkdown artist like Alex Smith.
Yep. So other key names, too, than you saw up there. Of course, we can throw that back up if you're watching the broadcast. Besides a lot of these, you don't have a lot of room for all of these names that are out there. But Kiki QT is a wide receiver for the Houston Texans. He is officially out, too. And I think that's a big blow because you look at the numbers, you would think, oh, who cares? He's not really that big of a factor for Houston. But the fact that you have Will Fuller now has a torn ACL, he's not going to play. The fact that you are breaking into Demaryius Thomas, and look, you have a guy in Hopkins who's going to garner a lot of attention. Now, that falls on other guys to make things work, especially like Miller in the backfield who has back-to-back 100-yard games. You have to kind of change your offense, and they're a big play passing game at that.
That's what they do. And, I mean, they're playing Denver today. To me, the key to play Denver is you got to be in base offense to get Denver to be in base defense, which makes Chubb an outside linebacker, not a defensive end. Houston plays nickel offense, which makes Chubb a nickel rusher. He's got 7 sacks for the season. Miller's got 8. I think this plays perfectly into the Denver Broncos because it gives them a chance to put their best players on the field, and Houston's receivers can't really challenge the corners of Denver.
And speaking of the Denver Broncos, a name that you saw on the list, Royce Freeman, one of their rookie running backs. It's been part of a tandem with him and Philip Lindsay. They've been fantastic with one another. It looks like he is going to miss this contest against the Houston Texans, so that is an injury that the Denver Broncos are going to have to deal with at this point. But we do have, as we get closer and closer to these games, reports that are coming through and breaking out, and this has to do and ties into our Sunday night contest later tonight. The Green Bay Packers taking on the New England Patriots. The Patriots, this is from Adam Schefter, will, quote, test tight end Rob Gronkowski's back and running back Sonny Michel's knee in the pregame, but there is concern about whether both players listed as questionable will be able to play tonight versus the Packers. And we now have the Patriots as a 5.5-point favorite. Your total is 56 points, but this is what an issue. we usually play, like, when you look at the injury report for the Patriots, right, it's a mile long. Everybody's always questionable. But this seems serious. Rob Gronkowski's been dealing with this for the last couple weeks. And Sonny Michel, we saw the difference, I thought, in that Buffalo Bills game.
No doubt.
Sonny Michel has shown that he's an effective running back, and they barely ran the ball against the Bills on Monday.
Look, everybody doesn't understand. The back makes the spread most effective. That's the key to when you have a great back, your spread becomes better. It's not the receivers, it's the back. And when they don't have Sonny Michel in the game, their back situation, Cordell Patterson, James White's a pass catcher, that doesn't work. To me, the biggest issue here is Gronk. Gronk's back is really a problem. Gronk can't really explode. His lower body doesn't drive. He's not able to really threaten the defense. He's had one touchdown pass all season. He's struggling to separate and get open. It really affects the game. And I think, to me, whether Gronk goes or not, he went last week and he wasn't right. Going doesn't really matter. It's being right that matters. And so when guys are working out before the game, that's always a problem.
Yeah, and I think that, again, what we're going to see here a lot with the New England Patriots in this game is you want to be able to test this secondary of the Green Bay Packers, right? And I would think that just on the surface, this team is poor enough defensively, the Green Bay Packers, that if Rob Gronkowski can't go, like Josh Gordon's kind of coming into his own a little bit, you're a little bit healthier, no more suspensions as we know about. So it looks like Tom Brady, I think, would be able to take advantage. Like, the Buffalo Bills defense is better than the Green Bay Packers defense.
Right, but here's the difference. Here's the difference, though. Mike Pettin, the defense coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, is an old Jet defense coordinator. And he used to give the Patriots a lot of problems because he would pack the middle of the field, and he would say to Tom Brady, you throw the ball outside the numbers in this game. And when you look at Tom Brady's numbers when you look at his numbers when he throws outside the numbers, it's significant. 6 yards per attempt outside to the right, 7.5 to the left. He doesn't really want to throw the ball. He wants to throw the ball inside, and he wants to throw it to where he can control it. They're short throws, run after catches. Without Gronk, that becomes problematic. Without anybody else in there. And if you force him to throw the ball outside, that's a challenge, and I think that's what Mike Pettin's going to do. I think this game fits perfectly for what the Packers want to do. Jar Alexander's a really outstanding cover guy. He'll go over and take Josh Gordon. They'll put him on Edelman. But the pressure is going to be on, where is Brady going to make plays down the field outside? I think that's the challenge.
So let's flip this. If you're Aaron Rodgers in this Green Bay offense, how do you attack this defense? Look, I've been on this. When you watch this Patriots defense, they're not the greatest team. Like, Bill Belichick has had far greater defenses in his time with New England. And I think we're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers and the fact that he can throw the ball wherever he wants to. Right, by the way, Geronimo Allison dealing with injury. It looks like Randall Cobb is going to play, so that's going to help. But I think, and I know you love this guy, Aaron Jones is going to have a huge role here. And I think that they can, if they're going to take advantage of New England in one aspect on offense other than Aaron Rodgers, Jones averages 6 yards a carry. This kid's phenomenal.
Right, and I think what Belichick has to do in this game is he's got to say to Aaron Rodgers, we dare you to run it. Whenever he would play Peyton Manning, what Belichick's tactics was always, we're going to cheat the box and dare you to run the football. You're going to get bored giving it to Edgerrin James. You're going to get bored giving it to the back. You're not going to give it to Joe Ajayi all the time, okay? You're not going to be able to do that. You're going to have to give it to him. And I think the Packers get bored giving it to Aaron Rodgers. Even last week, he averaged over 6 yards a carry, right? And they get bored. They want to make plays in the passing game. That's how you got to play it. You're going to take away something. When you play Aaron Rodgers, you're not going to stop the run and the pass. You got to cheat yourself somewhere. I think the Patriots will try to cheat themselves defensively into stopping the passing game, not necessarily having a heavy box.
By the way, Joseph Addai, one of the most underrated Indianapolis Colts of all time.
Yeah, so, you know, I played right near your powerhouse. You're a Colt fan. I remember that.
Joseph Addai was great.
Yeah,
and of course, and you know, the run up the middle, a minute and 2 seconds left. AFC Championship game, coming back from down 21-3, and they finally go to the Super Bowl to win. Not that I remember anything.
I like the Packers here today. I really do. I think Rodgers can make plays on the outside. I think Patriots will try to take away Devontae Adams, whether they put Gilmore on him one-on-one or whether they double Adams and put Gilmore on the number 2 guy. I think they'll have to, because I don't think the Patriots will rush well enough inside to create problems for Rodgers. And when Rodgers moves, this is when it becomes problematic. The Patriots always struggle with quarterbacks who can move but throw. Move it to another spot, move to another launch point, move somewhere else, and then make a throw. That gives them problems. Guys that just move, no problem. Guys that stand still in the pocket, no problem. It's that two-dimensional quarterback. That's what Rodgers is.
So this is my one issue here when it comes to Aaron Jones, and it has nothing to do with him. He has been phenomenal. Last week against the Rams, 12 attempts for 86 yards at 7.2 a clip.
Oh, I missed it by a yard. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. But what my point here is only 8 attempts against the 49ers, only 7 attempts against the Lions, only 11 against the Bills. Mike McCarthy has to give him the ball.
I know people always kid McCarthy on Twitter and say he must not have Aaron Jones in his fantasy league or something. And of course, that Ty Montgomery trying to work him in there, and Joe Williams. I think Aaron Jones struggles at times to pass protection. I think there's no doubt about it. I think when he's in the game, he's getting the ball.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens when you play a lot of running backs to get when you alternate when you're alternating. It's because the back can't do everything at the same time. So when Jones is in the game, Belichick's going to know he's getting the ball, or they're going to attack the pocket because they know he can't pass protect.
Yeah.
So that's how they're going to play that, and that's why you don't see Jones getting it. I love Aaron Jones. I thought he was a steal as a 5th-round pick. This kid was sensational at UTEP, but he blew his knee out, and then the year after he blew his knee out, he wasn't the same player. It took him a little bit time to come back. That's why he was a 5th-round pick. He's talented. He can make a difference in this game. I think the speed of Jones gives the Patriots defense a lot of trouble.
New England right now over at the Westgate Superbook getting about 80% of the money, 51% of the tickets at this point over at the Westgate. We'll get an update. John Murray's going to join us at the top of the next hour so we can get everything in terms of action and his breakdown on a lot of the games. We're going to take our break, come back. We still have a lot of injury reports and inactives to come. I know at about 11:30 Eastern time is when those inactives really start to pop up officially. So we'll have official names, who's playing, who's not. We have plenty more to get to in terms of a lot of these contests. We're leading up to kickoff here on Betting Across America, 90 minutes before foot meets ball for NFL Week 9.
Here we go.
It's Betting Across America, your new weekend guide to everything sports betting. It's VSiN, coast to coast. You can listen to us on SiriusXM Channel 204. Watch us online at vsin.com and at Fubo TV.
Like any other business, you have to keep reintroducing yourself to new things to keep people excited. And we found one, in-progress betting. 30 years ago, no one even knew what that was about. Now, as games are going on, we come to a timeout or a delay of game, we post odds for those particular games that you're watching in front of you. So what it makes easier for people who come in a little bit late, they can catch up on betting their favorite team because we're always posting odds on the board. It's not a big limit sport. It's only $1,000 in most places, but it keeps the interest there. So I can only tell you that something that maybe we shied away from 10 years ago, we welcome it now.
Some of the challenges with booking in play is about the synchronization of when you're coming into the end of a period, such as into the first quarter or into the halftime. You want to make sure that what you're going to offer from a halftime number also is in sync with what the in-game number is. Sometimes there's some arbitrage opportunities there that you need to manage.
Yeah, so in-game wagering, once that game kicks off, not only are there's just 2 guys below me, so there's 3 of us on a Saturday and Sunday. So as soon as that game kicks off, we're not only doing the regular games and the regular halftimes, we got one guy just sitting there banging away on a Saturday, booking all those games in-game. We got another guy watching all the mobile app, all the phone wagering coming in. So it's quite busy for us. We're really, really busy with in-game, but we got to do it. It's the way the whole world's going right now with in-game play.
The in-progress option that books are offering now is becoming more and more popular, and it's going to be more prominent as we move down the line. I think our biggest challenge as bookmakers is finding a reliable automated source for the U.S. market. What we're looking at right now, I don't think is acclimated to the U.S. market. So that's going to be our biggest challenge, is finding that partner that we see that has adjusted and more or less Americanized to the betting market here. Once we find that, it's going to take a lot of relief off the manpower that it takes to do the in-progress wagering option ourselves.
Welcome back to Betting Across America, live from the Ocean Resort Casino in Atlantic City. If something happens in sports betting, we'll keep you informed. Now back to Michael Lombardi and Jonathan Von Tobel.
Still plenty of time to get to the window and place your bets. Still plenty of time to hit up the website, vsin.com/subscribe, and sign up for Point Spread Weekly, our daily betting guide. You have to check this out. It is chock full of information. Not only do we have the National Football League in every single game. We have every single college football game, which you missed out on already, but you can get it next week if you sign up right now for $99. Get it through the Super Bowl. We also have NBA, NHL, everything that you need. And you see it here.
Breeders' Cup was this weekend.
Breeders' Cup was this weekend. We have everything possible, plus best bets in both college, NFL, and maybe a little bit in the NBA too, but everything that you need for football, basketball, and everything in between. And
Absolutely.
It's $99 if you want to
Great
check it
book.
out.
Unbelievable book. Incredible. I mean, that takes a lot of work, but it's incredible. Great information.
Yep, it is. So we want to help you out, not only if you sign up for Point Spread Weekly, but we're going to try this out. We do have what we call here, is this the translator? So we're going to call this the translator. And so every single Sunday, we're going to have a couple of deals where we'll throw out a term or anything like that. We can explain it, talk about it.
Because really, seriously, I mean, I think what most people don't really understand all the time is that there's words that we use in betting, words we use in the stock market that translate over that fans maybe don't understand. You taught me trends. You taught me the word trends, you know. And so I think that the sharp, I didn't know the sharp, how the sharp money and the fan money goes. So there's always certain kind of words that play into it. I think it's important people understand it.
All right, let's do this. What do we have as our first term today, translator? Hedge? Okay. First word of the day is hedge. This one's pretty easy. I was in this situation a couple weeks ago. Actually, just last week.
Let me ask you. So you had the Dodgers as the World Series favorite.
So I had them at 7-1. I bet them on a future ticket at 7-1. 6-1, excuse me. 6-1 to win the World Series. I had bet them right before they traded for Manny Machado. So that was, I don't know what month that was. But yeah, so I had a future ticket on the Dodgers. So they make it all the way to the World Series. So I'm sitting on the Dodgers at 7-1 just to win this series, and on the other side you have the Boston Red Sox, of course. So you can hedge, you can either make sure you get your money back, right? Or you can hedge to the point where you're actually going to make some sort of profit and cut into the other side. Now, personally, the way watching those series unfold all the way up to the World Series, I thought the Red Sox were going to win the series.
Right.
So I put a little bit more to get a solid profit, not anywhere near what I was going to get on the 6-1 ticket, but enough to at least make some money on the series. So you bet essentially both sides. You want to lock in either some sort of profit or get your money back, thus hedge.
Smart move. I mean, seriously, it's a smart move. I mean, it's a little bit like buying a stock that you own a stock and then you buy it when it goes down, figuring you can make the margin when it goes up, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
The same thing. So it applies in the same area.
Lock in a little bit of profit, and you want to go from there. And I had somebody on Twitter actually was going back and forth with me on the DMs. You know, you can, and it's not just future bets, right? The guy I was talking to had a teaser that he had put both college and pro football. All he needs is a Kansas City Chiefs later today, so you can hedge that and make a little bit of money. You take
last week we learned that in the in-game betting too, you can do that in terms of hedge.
And those are setting up middles, right? Those are setting up middles, so you can actually the middle is different because then you can get both sides in and you lock it in. But yes, hedge. There you go. So we have that one. We have another one.
Your second word today is steam.
Okay, steam. This is a good one too. We saw this yesterday. It worked out. The Washington State Cougars taking on Cal. All right, open up as an 11-point favorite, get steamed all the way down to the point where they were about 7.5 or 8, and that's what it is. When you see this initial move, and usually sometimes sharp bettors will move it initially, and then public bettors come in and just hammer that line down, and we've seen it. The Chicago Bears sometimes are routinely steamed. They're up to a 10-point favorite now. Yeah. So usually when you see a line move start to drastically move in one spot, it's getting steamed, right? When you go from an 11.5 or 11-point favorite to a 7.5-point favorite, steam is just coming in on one side.
Because the house has to offset their number at one point to the other because the house wants to make money as well. Yeah. So they're lowering the number based on the amount of money they're taking in.
And now this action's coming in both sharp, and usually it's one-sided, and you see this deluge of money come in.
So, like, give me an example today of a steam. So is that Bear game, is it still going?
The Bears game could be a great example. I mean, it hasn't moved up to this point. You could throw in, let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's moving. It's all the way down to 1 in some spots, so opened up as 3. So that's a pretty big move in that regard, especially to move off of that number of 3 to put it all the way down. Now you're getting a favorable number laying 1.5 or 2 with the Baltimore Ravens. You could possibly throw that in there. The Bears, though, opening up 8.5 and now moving all the way up to 10 is a good spot. It's 10.5 in one shop, and we saw it just last week with the Bears too. Yeah, right. We've seen it multiple times, so that's a good example. People love to bet the Chicago Bears for some reason.
Mitchell Trubisky.
Mitch pleased. I think we're trying to get Mitch pleased. All right, let's see what else we got. We got one more.
And the last word for today is public dog.
The dreaded public dog. So the public dog, of course, just like it sounds like, the underdog that the public is all over. And we've seen this a couple times. Usually you don't want to be on a public dog. The Steelers, fall into the category of the public dog this week.
Right.
They were catching 3 points. Everybody and their mother is on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Usually you don't want to be on the side of the public dog. It's a little bit of a trap, but the Steelers are a great example of a public dog.
But when you break down the games typically played in Baltimore, they're always close games.
Yep.
I think 7 of the last 11 games have been decided by 3 points or less, so you got a good opportunity to do that. Pittsburgh is a dog. I mean, obviously they lost to them the first game at home. They gave up a ton of yards. Baltimore's defense played really well, but I think that Pittsburgh team's way different than this Pittsburgh team today.
Oh, yeah, of course. And on top of it, they're just trending in 2 totally different directions, right? Winning 3 straight. Baltimore, 1-4, 1-3 over their last 4 games.
Well, I mean, I don't know what Joe Flacco you're going to get. Like, what Joe Flacco are you going to get? And the Ravens refuse to adapt their offense to what they have talent-based. I mean, to me, that's been the problem with the Ravens since Gary Kubiak has left. I mean, Flacco is a play-action pass quarterback. That's what he is. He's not a West Coast offense quarterback. He's got to use a running game to help them. They can't run the ball. They cannot run the football. Whether it's Buck Allen can't run it.
Ty Montgomery now,
or
he's
Alex
going to help.
Collins, they can't run the ball. Their offense is backwards. The pressure's on Flacco to be successful when really the pressure is we've got to find a way to run the ball and we got to use play action passes to utilize Flacco's best skill set, which used to be throwing the ball down the field.
Yep, and now actually, and an aspect of this now that we haven't even talked about because we have updated injuries and whatnot, you have a team in the Baltimore Ravens who are playing with 2 backup offensive tackles against a team in the Pittsburgh Steelers who are the best in terms of pressuring opposing quarterbacks in the NFL this year.
And now, can I add one more layer to that?
Of course.
Okay, Joe Flacco is one of the worst quarterbacks when facing the blitz in the National Football League.
And guess who's the best? Ben Roethlisberger.
There you go. You don't blitz Ben because Ben knows it's coming. Joe encourages a good blitz. So, when Joe's now you got 2 tackles. We saw what happened to the Oakland Raiders on Thursday night. You can say whatever you want about the game, effort, lack of talent. But when you play young tackles that really aren't good enough to play, your quarterback's going to be really holding on. Holding on for dear life. And I think that's what's going to happen today. Baltimore's going to have the game plan around it. And typically West Coast offense coordinators don't like to chip. If this was New England would be in YY wing, and they would be chipping the tight ends, and Brady would get protected. But typically, West Coast guys, they want to get 5 in the route. They want to get 5 out. Okay, he's got to block him. Okay, but he can't block him. He can't block him. It looks good on a blackboard. It don't look good on the field.
Yep, exactly. And I find this really fascinating because I mentioned how Ben Roethlisberger is one of the best quarterbacks in terms of against the blitz, completing about 70% of his passes when they bring 5 or more rushers. He's thrown 7 touchdowns this year when they bring 5 or more rushers. He absolutely eats teams alive when they bring pressure. And we keep adding layers per se. Guess who one of the top teams are in terms of bringing blitzes? It's the Baltimore Ravens. Everything to me, like when you look at this, and this is why I get the line move here, when you looked at everything in terms of just numbers, whether you wanted to do just general stats, like what they've done over their 3 games, or what they do well, like against the blitz, like rush the passer, everything to me looks like Pittsburgh is the right side in this game.
Yeah, it does. I mean, and Baltimore got embarrassed in Carolina last week. There's no 2 ways around it. Their defense got exposed. If you can protect and you can attack this secondary, you can make some plays against Baltimore. Pittsburgh can. This is going to be a back-and-forth game. I mean, this game's coming down to the 4th quarter. It's going to come down to Justin Tucker. It's going to come down to a field goal. It's going to be a close game. I think Pittsburgh wins the game because I think it's hard to beat a team twice in one season.
I say wow, by the way, because the 2s are essentially gone. This is now Baltimore minus 1.5 or 1. And
that line will start at Pittsburgh getting points.
3, getting
to
3.
now Pittsburgh's giving points.
No, it's -1 still. The Ravens are still -1. However, I mean, we're going to have to ask Murray when he joins us here, John Murray over at the Westgate at the top of the next hour. I mean, by the time we still have an hour and 20 minutes before kickoff, and the way this number's moving, I mean, at what point do we even get to see this maybe
it's
a
funny,
pick or
It's
flip?
funny you've been saying that because when we look down here at the book, and you and I turn between breaks all the time, the line keeps getting longer here at the William Hill Sports Back at the Ocean. I mean, and obviously people are running to get the number. It's a little bit like that fiber optic thing during the stock exchange where if you can get it at a little point, and if your line communicates quicker, I think this is what's going on here. There's some lines out there that for the taking.
Yeah, there is. That's great watching this move. So if you like the Baltimore Ravens, I would say hold out, or if you just want to lay a point, because it looks like it could flip, man.
Baltimore's a better home team anyway. I mean, Baltimore has 2 personalities. I mean, And I think Baltimore, everybody fell in the trap of Baltimore playing as well as they did in Tennessee.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, we still do have a Monday Night Football game to get into. So on the other side, let's dive a little bit into that. You have Tennessee hitting the road to take on the Dallas Cowboys. Maybe you talk about a little bit of line movement. There's been some line movement here as well with the Cowboys and the Titans. So we'll break down Monday Night Football on the other side. This is Betting Across America. Don't go anywhere. We got about an hour and 15 minutes until kickoff of the early games. And then at the top of the next hour, John Murray of the Westgate's going to join us from behind the counter to update all the action in Vegas. Don't go anywhere and stick here with VSiN.
It's Betting Across America, your new weekend guide to everything sports betting. It's VSiN, coast to coast. You can listen to us on SiriusXM Channel 204. Watch us online at vsin.com and at Fubo TV. Welcome back to Betting Across America, live from the Ocean Resort Casino in Atlantic City. If something happens in sports betting, we'll keep you informed. Now back to Michael Lombardi and Jonathan Von Tobel.
Live from VSiN's home on the East Coast, it's the William Hill Sportsbook. It's smack dab in the middle of the Ocean Resort Casino. We do have a Monday Night Football contest, a little ditty between the Titans and the Cowboys. Huh? You look thrilled.
Well, I love it. Look, I nicknamed Jason Garrett the Clapper.
I'm assuming
this is my finest hour. This was my finest hour. He claps all the time. But what made me so proud was somebody sent me a tweet of a guy in a costume wearing, pretending he was Jason Garrett, had the mannerisms down. It was the clap costume for Halloween. It was unbelievable. I was loving it. I mean, I was so proud. It might have been my proudest moment.
That's pretty good. You inspired a Halloween outfit. That's actually a pretty good accomplishment. You see the Cowboys right now over at the South Point Hotel and Casino. If you're watching the broadcast on Fubo TV or the VSiN app or VSiN.com, if you're listening, the Cowboys are a 4.5-point favorite. Your total sits at 40 right now. I have been, and this is what I find fascinating. So the Super Contest line actually has, so the Super Contest over at the Westgate Las Vegas, they set the lines for these and they project where they think the lines will end up by the time you reach kickoff. Now, originally, this opened up Dallas -4, got to as high as Dallas -6.5 at the Westgate, and has since been bought down to where we're at right now, where it's 4 or 4.5. Super Contest has 6.5, and with the Titans catching 6.5, I was all in. That line was way too high, and you're seeing it with the betting action. To go from 6.5 all the way now down to 4, and that's where we're at right now. So
Yeah.
the Titans got a lot of support leading up to Monday. We could still see this change by the time we get to kickoff, but to me, that's a correct number. Dallas -4. Laying a touchdown against the Titans, to me, that's a little bit too much.
Right, and look, I think Dallas is a better home team than they are a road team. That's pretty clear. And the Titans, both teams come off a bye.
No.
You know, so both teams have had extra time to prepare for this game, and I think that's a factor as well. The Cowboys changed their offensive line coach. They fire Paul Alexander. Remember, they switched. Frank Pollock was their line coach last year. He went to Cincinnati. Paul Alexander went down to Dallas. That switch, they got to get better production, especially in pass protection from their offensive line. That's going to be critical. Where does Amari Cooper fit into this offense? That's also going to be critical, how it answers that. Tennessee, look, Tennessee's offense has really been so inconsistent. Mariota's had that extra week to get healthy now. Can they carry on from the success they had in London when they really moved the ball effectively against the Chargers? Can it happen on Monday night? I think that remains to be seen.
Yeah, Dallas and Tennessee, both of the more lower-ranking offenses. If you look at a lot of metrics, yards per play, DVOA, whatever you have it. And I'm with you. Look, when you look at this Tennessee Titans team, you need more production out of, I think, Marcus Mariota, because this has been the issue. You go back to last year, more interceptions than touchdowns. This has been what has held them back at times, and he has these sparks. You go to the Philadelphia Eagles game earlier this year, where he accounts for, I think, almost nearly 400 total yards.
Yeah.
He is the reason why they won that game against Philadelphia, but then you have times where he doesn't make the best
lost
decisions.
the game against Baltimore.
He lost the game against
convert a
Baltimore,
third down,
against
right.
the Bills, where they have absolutely nothing going. So this team is so up and down, but there's one thing I do like about Tennessee, and there's their front seven.
Right.
The back end is susceptible to a lot of big plays, but that front seven can rush the passer, can be somewhat stout against the run, and if they're going to win this game, that's where it starts. It's bottling up Zeke Elliott and making Dak Prescott use his new toy in Amari Cooper, who I don't think is really going to be that effective in the big picture and in this game on Monday night.
And you say the Titans are bad in the back end, and look, nobody has put more resources in the back end than the Titans do. They signed Malcolm Butler to a huge contract, signed Logan Ryan to a huge contract, drafted Adoree Jackson in the first round. 3 guys that really, and they've struggled giving up big plays over the top. I'm with you, though. I think that the pressure that you can put on the Cowboys line has to show improvement. I mean, that's been critical, and they've got to be able to do that, and they've got to let Dak run the ball. I think they were more effective the last time when Dak played against Detroit. Whenever he can get involved with his feet a little bit and run more Mississippi State offense than the Dallas Cowboy offense, I think it's more effective. I don't know what team you're going to get out of Tennessee. I really never know that. I think obviously the Monday night will be a high-level game. Gil Brandt goes in the Ring of Honor, well-deserved there. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful gesture by Jerry Jones to put one of the great personnel men, the guy who started the personnel league, to put him in the Ring of Honor. But going back to the game, you know, the Titans, to me, I just don't think they have enough skill players on offense to make Mariota better.
Just to pick your brain a little bit as a former executive, because we saw during the trade deadline, you saw Golden Tate go for a 3rd-round pick. You saw Demaryius Thomas move for a 4th-round pick. And then you see the Dallas Cowboys ship off a 1st-round pick for a guy who, those other 2 wide receivers I just mentioned, is, at least in terms of production the last, I'd say, year and a half, has not been anywhere near their level.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like the trade at all because I think, unlike basketball, NFL teams don't lottery protect their pick.
Yeah.
And so
you can't say if I land within this is, this mention.
I mean, I would have lottery protected it.
Yeah.
I would have said, hey, look, I'll trade you my 1st if it falls 16 or lower, or you'll take my 2nd.
And if not, it turns into like 3 7th-round picks.
Exactly. You know, I mean, look, there's no way, because if they lose this game to the Titans, I mean, and then here's what I would have done also. Once I made that trade, if I were Dallas, I would have signed a legitimate backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Because if something happens to Dak and he misses time, like what's happened to Miami, Ryan Tannehill and Brock Osweiler has to play, then you're going to lose all sorts of games. You got no chance to win if anything happens to Dak. And so now all of a sudden, that's a lottery pick.
Yeah.
And you could really be exposed because Amari Cooper's not a lottery pick worthwhile. He's not. He's just not. Drops the ball too much. He's at the top of his route. He hasn't shown a burst or separation, and he can't change the effect of the game. I mean, let me ask you this question. When the Cowboys got Cooper, did it shift anything in the line in terms of winning the division for Dallas?
No. And skill position, to be fair, skill positions won't do that, right? A wide receiver is not going to change anything in terms of a game line. They're not going to change anything in terms of a future. But regardless, it's not going to change anything whatsoever in terms of the faith that the odds have in the Dallas Cowboys because of the position that he plays. And regardless, I don't think it should change your faith if you're just looking at them in the big picture, because to me, it's a mixture of, yeah, sure, you needed help at wide receiver, right? But you also, I think, need a little bit better quarterback play, and I think you need to get more imaginative play calling.
Yeah. I mean, you just think Jerry would eventually learn. He makes for Roy Williams trade. That didn't work out.
Oh, yeah.
He makes all these trades for receivers. Joey Galloway trade didn't work out, really. I mean, he overpays for these receivers.
He's still thinking about Michael Irvin.
I mean, and he can't quite, to me, that's the problem with the Cowboys. And then offensively, I think their scheme is outdated, especially on third down. And they think Cole Beasley is going to make this is going to make Cole Beasley more effective in the slot, which it might. Yeah. But Cooper's going to have to prove to people around the league he can make plays.
And to your point, so we can bring in the Rams, because I remember, I think you actually wrote about it in your article for The Athletic a couple weeks back, how Jones made the comment that he thinks that we have a Rams-style offense out on the field.
I need an eye exam, but he needs one too.
But you look at the Rams, and you mentioned earlier in the show, essentially almost the same base package almost every single time, right? But they run motions every single time. They're going to fake a jet sweep because they're going to keep that in the back of your mind. They're going to keep your offense or your defense moving back and forth. And then that one moment, they'll run that actual jet sweep and gash you for about 11 yards. There's imagination even before the snap is called. With Dallas, there's nothing much. There's nothing pre-snap for defenses to worry about. They come out, they're set, and then they run a play.
And they have no tight end that can really threaten the field. Whenever they put Rico Gathers in the field, everybody knows he's getting the ball because he can't block, right? And so it's a trick play to go to Rico Gathers. So they're too dependent. Tavon Austin's in the game. Oh, alert screen, alert wide receiver screen, alert reverse. I mean, they're too predictable. I think Dallas has some issues scheme-wise. They definitely have issues talent-wise offensively.
So we've seen again, if you're just tuning in, this number has moved. It is now Tennessee catching 4 or 4.5 points. There's a 5 out there as well. I'm not sure. I mean, we'll see, but I think it's a big ask. It is not until Monday, but I think it's a big ask to get this back to the Super Contest line of 6.5. Some other moves that we're seeing here as we get closer to the top of the hour, and John Murray of the Westgate will join us coming up next. We can go through some of these movements as we get closer and closer to
Where's the sharp money going today? Tell me where that's going.
Well, let's find out from John Murray. Murray's going to have all of that for us, so he's going to know because he's actually at the counter. I know that over here there's been some bets on the total. We were just talking behind the counter. There's been some bets on a lot of total action here.
I mean, there's a lot of people want to play today. Obviously, somebody had some bad college day because it seems like a lot of people are trying to get some action in today. They're just not listening to the show. They have a bad college day. It's their own fault.
Minnesota, now a 5-point favor across the board. There is 1 5 and a hook. That is over at the Golden Nugget in the Las Vegas community. So the 5s are out there with Minnesota. I don't think this is going to get 4.5 in anywhere. It's going to go up to 5.5 by the time we reach kickoff. Other movements really that we're starting to see here, and I think this one is what we're going to see as we get closer to kickoff. Carolina in one spot in Las Vegas, Michael, is a 6.5-point favorite now. It just moved a couple minutes ago over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Which is fascinating because they think McCoy's going to play today. I don't know if he's in it.
And Vinny Curry.
And Vinny Curry's going to play. So you think their defense, Mark Duffner, they've actually looked half decent defensively. Cincinnati moved the ball, but at least they've stopped giving the ball thrown over their head the last 2 weeks. So you'd think that with Curry and with McCoy coming back, that would entice them. But I think Cam Newton's playing too good. I think Cam Newton's playing really effectively this year.
I'm definitely going to watch. I have no skin in this game, but I do think this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense is different. Different's a good word, right? They're different with Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, they are different with Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, and it depends on what Ryan you get, the good Ryan or the bad Ryan, And so, but I think a lot of it depends on their offensive line, too. If you hit Fitzpatrick early in the game, that tends to set the tone, and then it becomes a little bit more problematic.
Quietly a bad offensive line, too.
Yeah, nobody talks about how bad that line is.
And you can go back just to use Ryan Fitzpatrick. Go back to that Monday night game against us. He was getting just pasted left and right.
Because people were attacking their protection.
Yep. All right, other games that have moved, we are starting to see there is a 10.5 now with the Chicago Bears against the Buffalo Bills. I don't see this going anywhere else. I think the 10.5, that's the lone one, and I think that might be the only one that you see.
What would that number have to be for you to play Buffalo?
I mean, I'm already tempted at 10.
I know. I would have been tempted at 8.
All right, with Peterman,
I would have been tempted anything over a touchdown with this because I don't think the Bears are not that good.
Yeah,
they're not that good. I mean, they've got problems offensively. They can't. Trubisky can't make consistent. I mean, Sean McDermott does a great job of defending you. Look, Tom Brady struggled last week. They didn't have the back. He struggled, and they've created turnovers in there. They can create turnovers. Jerry Hughes is having a great season rushing around the corner. To me, what would the number have to be for you to put your heart on cash?
For sure, if I get 14, I'm grabbing 14 with the Bills. That's 100%. So, I mean, maybe somewhere in the middle, like 12.5 to 14, I'm totally
all right, you would tease this game, right?
Oh, I mean, yeah, that would be a candidate for, it goes either way, right? So they offer 10-point teasers here. You have to get at least 3 teams, you lay $1.20. So you can 10-point tease the Chicago Bears. You can get them at a pick against the Buffalo Bills, so that'll set you up really nicely. You can tease, I don't know, Kansas City.
So you could tease Buffalo, get 20.
Yeah, you can tease, and get
20. You can get the Patriots and get 6.
Yeah, you can do a lot, man.
And you can get the Rams and get 10.
Yep. You can do a lot with the teasers out here. Again, 10-point teaser, $1.20 for 3.
I'm going to write that down to see if that works.
We'll get you a 10-point
Trev, we got to remember that one now.
All right. We're going to have plenty more. John Murray's going to join us from the Westgate on the other side. We're going to get the update of all the sharp action. As you like,
we need that.
You'd like to find out.
I always
so we'll
like
see
to
where
know
the Sharpies are on. We'll just see what the action is like in general. And we have to get to the bottom of this line food for the Steelers and the Ravens. There's a lot more to go. We're 60 minutes from kickoff for the early games here on Week 9. Don't go anywhere. VSiN is the spot to be all day.
It's Betting Across America, your new weekend guide to everything sports betting. It's VSiN, coast to coast. You can listen to us on SiriusXM Channel 204. Watch us online at vsin.com and at Fubo TV.
As Uncle Brent always says, cash and tickets is what it's all about. And that's what every issue of Point Spread Weekly is all about, too. VSiN wants to make you a better handicapper, not just today, not just tomorrow, not just this week, but for months and for years to come. And now is the time to subscribe. We have a special limited-time offer. We're halfway through the football season. You can get Point Spread Weekly and full access to everything we do for just $99 through the Super Bowl. That includes our 24/7 live video stream, replays of our shows, our special guides, and online exclusives, full coverage of NFL Week 9 with a special focus on the big showdown, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers on Sunday night. You also get the top pro and college football games to watch, power ratings and best bets from VSiN's experts, plus handicapping articles and info on college basketball. That's right, it's almost here. Plus the NBA, NHL, golf, CFL, and NASCAR. Go to VSiN.com/subscribe for the package that makes the most sense for you, including our special offer, $99 through the Super Bowl. This includes Point Spread Weekly as well as full access to our live video and our replays. That is VSiN.com/subscribe.
The Supreme Court will allow states to legalize sports betting.
Justices ruled 7-2.
The court struck down a federal law that banned gambling on sports games in most of the country.
The big headline is that this really paves the way for states across the country to legalize sports betting.
This is going to be a seismic shift.
We are already seeing the market react.
Everything is going to happen state by state.
Competition is thriving.
Of sports betting.
There's a renaissance that's been happening.
Jobs have been created.
There's a lot of new technologies, in-game betting.
Any stock, a publicly traded company that deals in the gaming world, they're all rising.
I've learned this in the NFL. Stop looking at the stats and watch the tape.
Sometimes you want to go against the money.
Belichick was obsessed with trying to find a goal line defense.
Pigskin pontification.
He's out there just throwing.
Give me the point.
He's a robot.
They've been covered about a 64% clip.
That's what a real football team looks like.
We're just seeing a revolution here.
Live from the new epicenter of East Coast sports betting, from the Ocean Resort Casino and the William Hill Sportsbook in Atlantic City, New Jersey, it's Betting Across America, your new go-to destination for everything sports betting. It's VSiN Coast to Coast. Here are your hosts, Michael Lombardi and Jonathan Von Tobel.
Yep, you heard it. VSiN's new home on the East Coast. We're at the Ocean Resort Casino. 60 minutes from kickoff of the early games, and we have to check in. Home base, I guess you can call it.
Yeah, let's get him.
John Murray,
the Redskin fan.
Yeah, director of the Superbook at Westgate, Las Vegas. John Murray, I have to say this too. Michael Lombardi quickly becoming your biggest fan, I think.
Really? That's very flattering, and I just want to tell you guys what a privilege it is. Seriously, it's a privilege to go on VSiN every week.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, you know what? You are a great, great guest, and we love every second that we spend with you. So let's start with the important stuff. I want to go with the AFC North. The Ravens and the Steelers, this number has been moving insane. Now it looks like the Ravens are about a 1-point favorite. What's it been like for you guys over there? Is this just money pouring in on the Steelers?
It's money for sure on the Steelers. You know, we actually took 60,000 on the Ravens -3 last Sunday night from one of our players, but since then it's been a steady stream on Pittsburgh all week. Baltimore's going to be without both of its offensive tackles today. This is really a must-win game for Baltimore after the loss last week to Carolina and the loss 2 weeks ago against New Orleans.
John, I know you're the big Redskin fan, and I was a Redskin fan too at one time. Talk to me about your Redskins playing at home against Atlanta. What's the action on that game?
You know, Mike, I'm a little surprised. I actually thought I thought the line was going to move towards Atlanta because we've seen that several times, these Redskins home games. The line's gone the other way. The other team's gone off favored. But the line's really been steady all week. Right now the tickets are pretty split. There's a few more bets on the Redskins, but nothing noteworthy. I kind of like Atlanta in this spot. And I know my pick last week on the Giants against Washington was a bit of a dud, but I kind of lean towards Atlanta's coming off their bye week here. I don't think the Redskins are as good as their record. How about I'll say that. But the Redskins defense does get a boost this week with the Redskins. A great safety pairing now with DJ Swearinger and HaHa Clinton-Dix. The Redskins do have a pretty solid defense, but still haven't really gotten anything out of Alex Smith. And I got to think Adrian Peterson is going to run out of gas. That guy's almost as old as I am. I don't know how he keeps doing it.
That's John Murray, who's
he's in better shape than you, John. I'll say that. He might be as old as you, but he's in better shape.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that he is.
Taking shots, although I don't think you've ever met John Murray in person.
I wasn't taking a shot. I just, he's in great shape. Look, he's better shape than all of us. I mean, look, I wasn't. John, I didn't take that the wrong way. I mean, you're working late at night there, taking money. I mean, you're too busy. I see that happening.
Man.
I do.
His 26th carry last week, Mike. His 26th carry, he breaks it off for a 76-yard touchdown down the sideline. Adrian Peterson is a specimen. He defies. I always joke about running backs. I ripped the Giants 100 times for drafting Saquon Barkley because I say running backs can only play for 5 or 6 years, and Adrian Peterson proves me wrong every week. That guy, he's special.
Yeah. But there's always exceptions to all the rules. But I think you're right about the criticism of the Giants. I mean, we don't have them this week. We don't have Hugh Jackson to kick around this week. I know that disappoints you. It disappoints me.
It does.
Damon Harrison, the rookie left tackle for the Browns, is inactive today, which I don't know where they're going to put Batano out there to play left tackle. I'll be interested. Where do you see this action going on this Chief Cleveland game with the Hueless Cleveland Browns?
I can tell you guys that this could be one of the most one-sided bet games we've seen all year in the NFL. Just a huge percentage of the tickets and the money are on the Kansas City Chiefs. But the number's actually gone against the money. Yep. Now, this number got down to Kansas City -7.5 briefly yesterday. Right now, Kansas City is an 8-point favorite. I say this every week. We're going to need the Cleveland Browns this morning.
John, how you holding up now that you're going to have an NFL Sunday without your boy Hugh?
I'm going to miss him. You know, I did a couple radio spots this week, Johnny, where they were like, "Oh, congratulations, Hugh Jackson got fired." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Hugh Jackson was 50% of my material. It's 50% of my jokes."
Me too. I mean, I do a podcast twice a week. I mean, I feel like David Chase when a character got knocked off in The Sopranos. I don't have anybody to talk about. Like, it's so disappointing.
I got nothing
Hugh
left.
was, and he's still giving us great material. Today he comes out and says he's disappointed in Jimmy Haslam and John Dorsey. By the way, they had great practices this week. I think this will be an interesting game. I think this will be a fascinating game in terms of where Greg Williams' role fits in as the head coach of the team, how he sees the game going, how he calls the game differently as the head coach. And I think Andy Reid is just going to operate business as usual. I think he's going to take advantage of a secondary that you can take advantage of. Even though Denzel Ward has a reputation of being a great coach, doesn't tackle very well, you can double move him, and I think people will do that. And I don't think Tyreek Hill is dressing today.
Yeah.
Well, I know that I'm going to miss the Hugh Jackson era. I think the next coach I'm going to make fun of is Jason Garrett. But it's never going to be the same as Hugh. And Hugh did give us a parting gift, Mike. He went on his publicity tour blaming everybody but himself for the Browns' 3-36 record the last 3 years. That was great. He just made sure he said he wanted Carson Wentz. That was awesome. Well, then why didn't he do it 2 years ago? Then go get him 2 years ago. I mean, it's easy to say that now. That he wanted Carson Wentz, he wanted Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, he wants them all in after the fact. I mean, he's a genius with an eraser. That's the reality of the situation. Let's talk about the Patriots game, the Packer. Where's the money go? Where's the sharp money going here?
You know, we had a guy last night, pretty late last night, right before we closed. He bet $28,000 on the Patriots -5.5. We're still at 5.5 right now. It's a pretty split game. I mean, look, there's more money on the Patriots, but there's going to be a lot of support for Green Bay. There's going to be a lot of support for Green Bay money line. The public loves to take these money line dogs in a spot like this. I can tell you guys right now, the majority of the money line tickets are on the Packers. It's going to be one of these games where there's going to be a lot of money both sides. We're going to need it to go under. That's what we needed in the Sunday night game last week, that New Orleans-Minnesota game. The money on the side was very split, but the total was all over money, and we were saved because that game went under the total. I think tonight's game is going to be the same situation.
You know, John, you mentioned that, and I'm actually really fascinated, too, because we have the Rams and the Saints going at it later today, and we saw this total. I think you guys opened it up 60.5, but it's dropped now. It's like 57.5. Why would these two teams with two great offenses and two defenses that actually can get scored on, why are we seeing movement on the under?
You know, I've been surprised by that, too, actually, guys, because this thing, we opened it at 60.5. We had a sharper player. He went under 60.5. We went to 59.5 at that time. But I thought it was going to come back up as we got through the week, just because I thought the public was going to come in so heavily on the over. We haven't really seen that. I guess maybe when you set these NFL totals at 60, you finally get some resistance from the public, and some people will bet the under. We've actually seen a pretty even support for both the over and the under in that game, and that has definitely surprised me. I thought it would be the public going all in on the over in this game. And let's keep in mind, though, we got about 4.5 hours till that game starts. So there's still plenty of time for the public bettors to come in on the over.
Hey, John, let's talk about the Miami Jet game. We know the field's a disaster down there, and if it rains, it might get even muddier. What's the action been like on that game? Who do you like in that game?
Well, you know, that total came down yesterday, but we've actually seen it come back up a little bit this morning, and it's back up to 42.5. The field, from everything I've read and seen, is just completely torn to shreds. You know, Mike, if you made me pick that game, I'd take the Jets +3 just to go against Brock Osweiler. But I can't say I can't say I've got a really good feel for that one. But if my choices are one or the other, and I can take +3 against Brock, I'll do that.
You know, John, you were mentioning earlier, so 50% of material is Hugh Jackson. The other 50%, as you call him, Nathan J. Peterman, who gets the start here for the Buffalo Bills, taking on the Bears. And I'm starting to see 10.5 kind of pop up in a couple shops. I kind of, we're talking this earlier. I didn't expect this to get to 10.5, but it looks like it might. But what's this been like? Because I know you guys opened it about 8.5 and now sitting at 10, right?
You know, it's surprisingly split here, John. There's been some money on Buffalo, too, some Jay Peterman backers. Obviously, the majority of the tickets are on the
Another
Bears.
Seinfeld reference for you.
The Bears are being included in every moneyline parlay, which you'd certainly expect. And the Bears have been included in a lot of teasers. But there's been some support for Buffalo, too. I mean, I don't think the public as much as the public loves to play road favorites, they're not in a huge rush to lay 10 points with Mitch Trubisky on the road. As bad as Buffalo looks, Buffalo's defense really hung in there very well on Monday night against New England. Buffalo absolutely should have covered that New England game, and there's been some resistance here with the point spread being this high.
You know, I wanted to say, I told JVT when he walked in here this morning, I said, if I had any guts, I would talk about Buffalo winning this game outright, you know, and I think they can. But then I looked at Nate Peterman's stats, and I realized that his quarterback rating is actually lower than the temperature is going to be in Buffalo today, which to me is remarkable, right? So how can you do that? Like, how can you put your hard-earned dollars on a guy who's thrown 3 touchdown passes, 9 interceptions in a limited role? I actually think, to be honest with you, they should let Sean McCoy play quarterback and just run the single wing. I think they'd have they might win the game if they did that.
What about letting Terrell Pryor take some snaps? I mean, anything could be.
I would do that too. I think Terrell Pryor was a sleeping giant at the Jets. I think they should have utilized him like Taysom Hill. I think there's a dynamic in the NFL for some of that. I don't think you can win week in and week out, but to steal a game, like you could steal this game. I mean, because Trubisky's going to throw you a couple if you catch him. You got to catch him, right? But he's going to throw you a couple, and I get the chance. And this line's too big. I mean, to me, I don't see the Bears ever dominating any team. They couldn't dominate Miami down in Miami. They couldn't dominate Arizona in Arizona. Why are they going to dominate Buffalo?
You know, Mike, what would scare me about taking Buffalo at 4-1 is, does Buffalo want to win this game? I don't know that the Bills are really I mean, I know the players want to win, but I don't know that the organization really wants to win any more games this year.
I can speak to that. I think they do. I think this whole tanking element that goes on that we talk about in the public, inside the building, there's no necessary to tank because, look, you know that, they have their quarterback, right? They're not looking to move up. True. Plus, we know this. There's no quarterback that's going to come out in this draft that nobody's trading up to get, right? This is going to be this quarterback draft is not going to be there, JVT. So if you're the Giants who didn't pick one last year, you're not going to get one this year. Maybe you're calling Sam Bradford now that he's available. If you want to out-check down Eli Manning, then have Bradford come in and that you both can check down together, and that'd be perfect. But to me, there's no quarterback, and so I just don't see that tanking element going on. I think coaches are way too competitive. They're too paranoid about what's going to happen to their future, whether they have a 20-year contract or a 1-year contract. They're too worried about it.
And I thought, actually, speaking about Bradford, it's a topic for another day, I thought the Jags might be a team that could go maybe reach out and get Bradford, but we'll see if that actually happens. John Murray is with us, of course, director of the Superbook at Westgate, Las Vegas. Follow him on Twitter at Vegas Murray. All right, John, let me ask you about this game on Monday night. The reason why I'm really interested in this, because you guys, for the Super Contest, actually put this up at Dallas 6.5. It's Dallas 4.5 or 4 in a lot of spots. Do you expect this to get to 6.5? Because, of course, you guys set those numbers, obviously what you projected to be, and it was 6.5 briefly in your book, but now we're all the way down.
It's an interesting game, John, because we opened this game 4 on Sunday night. That's what our team here thought was the right number. Then the market climbed early in the week, and when we did the Super Contest lines on Wednesday afternoon, the market was at 6.5, so that's what we used in the Super Contest. And now the money's come back in on Tennessee. The market's come back down to what we had initially made it. So I guess you could argue that we should have trusted ourselves a little bit more when we set the Super Contest lines. But Dallas -4 is right what we initially thought this game should be.
Yeah, I agree. I think anything more. Look, Tennessee, I can't get a feel for them. I don't know what Mariota is going to show up. The bad Mariota that played against Baltimore, the good Mariota that played against the Chargers. I have no idea. I think they're a better team. No, I don't think. I know they're a better team when Deion Lewis is the running back. I think Henry's too one-dimensional. Teams can key what he's doing. He doesn't offer enough in the passing game. He's a finisher. He's really a closer. He's like Mariano Rivera. You got to bring him in late and let him close the game out once you get the lead. But to build the lead, you need Deion Lewis in the game, and I think that's why. But I think this Dallas defense is really good. I think they're really good. David Irving's an outstanding player. If healthy, he'll play. Lawrence is an outstanding player. Gregory has shown he can rush the passer. This is a really good defense. Jalen Smith has gotten better along with Sean Lee. I think that's going to create some problems because I just don't know what what Marcus Mariota play is going to show up.
You're absolutely right. It's quietly a very good defense in Dallas that I don't think gets enough credit. I think Jason Garrett's going to be my next coach to make fun of guys. Now that Hugh's gone, I think Jason Garrett.
You got to get in line. You got to get in line, John.
I'll be number 2 behind you. But for that guy to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, 10 years that guy's been the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, probably the most glamorous organization in the league, and he's never won a thing. how that guy's managed to last in Dallas for a solid decade is beyond me. So I think he's going to be my next guy.
Well, he went to Princeton. He went to Princeton, so he's really smart. So you have to understand that. You know, that's the thing. And he claps a lot, which is very good. Look, I agree with you. I think Jason Garrett's limited. I don't understand what he does in terms of game management, how he handles that. He doesn't call offense. He doesn't call defense. He doesn't call the special teams. So, you know, but he does what Jerry wants him to do, which is essentially why they're not been able to win. And I think that's really the key area there.
No, I completely agree with you. That's exactly what I think. And I just, he to me is one of the most useless head coaches in the league. I don't know what he brings to the table. And I think he's the guy that I think I'll make fun of next. But guys, it's not going to be as much fun as Hugh Jackson. Nothing will be that great.
No. All right, let's talk one more game. Let's talk Chargers-Seattle.
Yep.
What's your take on that one?
You know, I would probably lean to Seattle. I didn't play that game, and I didn't give it out this week. I'd probably lean to Seattle just because I think there's such a coaching edge there. I've said this week I think Pete Carroll is doing one of the best coaching jobs of his career this year in Seattle. Very underappreciated how good of a job he's done with that team. I think they've only played 2 games at home this season so far. They've had a lot of road games. They had that trip to London. I think in terms of personnel, the Chargers are way more talented than the Seahawks are. But with the coaching edge I give to Pete Carroll over Anthony Lynn and the home field advantage there in Seattle, this looks like a complete toss-up game to me.
Yep. I mean, John, both Lombardi and I are both kind of lock in step here with the Seattle Seahawks. I really do like them a lot in this spot against the Chargers. And speaking of, I have to ask you before we get you out of here, what are you going to take with your padlock here and lock in this evening? Or maybe, something. Yeah, what are you going to do?
You know, just real quickly, me and Sammy both locked in winners on Tuesday on Between the Sidelines. So it's up to you now to finish the three-peat with the Vikings today, Johnny. A little bit of pressure there.
Oh, that's right.
I'm going to go with I'll go with the Denver Broncos. Deshaun Watson with that lung condition in the thin air Mile High Stadium today in Colorado, that could be a real problem to keep an eye on for the Texans. I like Denver in this spot. I think Houston's 5-game winning streak is totally fraudulent. I'll go with the Broncos in that defense here.
I do too. I think the bigger concern is lungs, and those 2 tackles, Lamb and Davenport, really make it a concern here.
Right.
One quick question before we let you go. Any news on what Duffelbag Boys bet on today?
You know, the Duffelbag Boy did not bet here at all this week, guys, but I understood that he made a pretty big parlay of Toledo to Clemson at another book on the Strip, and he would have cleaned up on that. But haven't seen him this week. He was here last week. He had a lot of money on Purdue against Michigan State. He lost those bets. He did not surface at the Superbook this week at all.
Do you have his picture posted in case he comes in? We think he looks like D.B. Cooper. Is that the case?
Kind of. That's actually not a terrible comparison. No, I don't think he's what most people are picturing. Because one of the VSiN guys, Mitch Moss, went as the Duffelbag Boy for Halloween, and he had a beard and all this stuff, and I was like, no, Mitch, no, that's wrong.
Yeah, that's completely wrong. By the way, a slight mention there, John Murray patting himself on the back ever so slightly. But you got Cal at 10 points against Washington State yesterday, and that one dropping all the way to 7.5. That was ridiculous.
That was a good one. And Sammy had Michigan. And that line went way up too. So Between the Sidelines has been giving out some winners, man. Just got to lock in the Vikings one now, Johnny.
That's right. All the pressure on me.
You tell Sammy, keep betting Michigan to the final. He's going to get disappointed. I can promise you that.
Be careful with Michigan. I got Michigan, 3rd best team in the country right now, guys. Alabama, Clemson, Michigan, number 3.
We're going to have a debate on that. We got to bring him back on the Saturday show next week.
Director of the Superbook of Westgate, Las Vegas. Follow him on Twitter at Vegas Murray. All right, John, take it easy, man. Thanks a lot for the time.
All right, guys. You guys have a good day.
Thanks, John.
All right. Yeah, by the way, just to let you know, Between the Sidelines, our football show, we have a daily for an hour. We're currently, between the 3 of us, we have my bet pending today, but we're on a 5-0 streak against the number. So we're doing pretty well.
That's not pretty well. You can't do any better, can you? I mean, that's not doing pretty well. You
if the Vikings can come through, us 3 between the last 2 shows have been 6-0, so that's pretty clean. But we got to come through. We got to come through. We got to come through with Minnesota. By the way, we mentioned Duffelback Better. You're going to get an answer next week because remember, Jay-Z did go out to Las Vegas.
I know, but he's got to find him.
He's
got to find him. We can't see. He's like, he can't find him. We don't know what he's looking for. You can't find something you don't know what you're looking for, right? It's hard to do.
Maybe we'll find out what exactly he brings to the table when he gets out there. All right. For the next 40 minutes, don't go anywhere. Game-to-game analysis of what we have going down. We've got 40 minutes to kick off of the early games. This is Betting Across America. You don't want to be anywhere else if you're on your way to a book or you're already there to cash some tickets.
It's Betting Across America, your new weekend guide to everything sports betting. It's VSiN, coast to coast. You can listen to us on SiriusXM Channel 204. Watch us online at vsin.com and at Fubo TV.
Like any other business, you have to keep reintroducing yourself to new things to keep people excited. And we found one, in-progress betting. 30 years ago, no one even knew what that was about. Now, as games are going on, we come to a timeout or a delay of game, we post odds for those particular games that you're watching in front of you. So what it makes easier for people who come in a little bit late, they can catch up on betting their favorite team because we're always posting odds on the board. It's not a big limit sport. It's only $1,000 in most places, but it keeps the interest there. So I can only tell you that something that maybe we shied away from 10 years ago, we welcome it now.
Some of the challenges with booking in play is about the synchronization of when you're coming into the end of a period, such as into the first quarter or into the halftime. You want to make sure that what you're going to offer from a halftime number also is in sync with what the in-game number is. Sometimes there's some arbitrage opportunities there that you need to manage.
Yeah, so in-game wagering, once that game kicks off, you know, not only are we just two guys below me, so there's three of us on a Saturday and Sunday. So as soon as that game kicks off, we're not only doing the regular games and the regular halftimes, we got one guy just sitting there banging away on a Saturday, booking all those games in-game. We got another guy watching all the mobile app, all the phone wagering coming in. So it's quite busy for us. We're really, really busy with in-game, but we got to do it. It's the way the whole world's going right now with in-game play.
The in-progress option that books are offering now is becoming more and more popular, and it's going to be more prominent as we move down the line. I think our biggest challenge as bookmakers is finding a reliable automated source for the U.S. market. What we're looking at right now, I don't think is acclimated to the U.S. market. So that's going to be our biggest challenge, is finding that partner that we see that has adjusted and more or less Americanized to the betting market here. Once we find that, it's going to take a lot of relief off the manpower that it takes to do the in-progress wagering option ourselves.
Welcome back to Betting Across America, live from the Ocean Resort Casino in Atlantic City. If something happens in sports betting, we'll keep you informed. Now back to Michael Lombardi and Jonathan Von Tobel.
Yep, the East Coast studio for VSiN. We're smack dab in the middle of the Ocean Resort Casino, leading all the way up to kickoff of the early games for NFL Week 9. Let's start. Top of the rotation. Michael Lombardi likes to give me a hard time because we go by rotation order here. That's right.
I love it.
451, 452 on your rotation order. Detroit and Minnesota. Vikings now a 5-point favorite across the board. So that one spot, the Golden Nugget, you actually just saw Tony Miller if you're watching the broadcast, that is now gone. So it is now 5 across the board. The Vikings are the favorite here. South Point Hotel and Casino as well if you're watching the broadcast on vsin.com, vsin app, or Fubo TV. Vikings, the favorite. I think, look, I like this Vikings team offensively. I know they're a little bit one-dimensional, but if they can get Dalvin Cook going, which, by the way, he's going to be on a pitch count today. He's going to be back. I think this Vikings offense can be really effective, and you're taking on probably one of the bottom, what would you say, bottom 5 for sure, defenses in the National Football League when you look at a lot of the plays. I think Kirk Cousins has a big day in store, and we can go back to Sunday night against the Saints. That turned on that fumble, and I think a lot of people were kind of like overreacting a little bit to that final outcome. When you watch that game, the Vikings were in it the whole time against the
it's one thing to be one-dimensional run game. That's bad. One-dimensional pass game is not too bad.
In today's NFL, you get away with it.
You get away with it, especially considering that some of the bubble screens and the flash screens that you can run. But I think the big question here is Ziggy Ansah, the defensive end, the transitional franchise player for the Detroit Lions, is back finally today after getting hurt in the opener against the Jets. That's huge for their defense. It gives them at least a pass rusher, somebody that they can get after the quarterback a little bit. Now, on the road, it's probably going to be hard. His first game back. I like Cousins. I think Cousins has played really well. I think Kyle Rudolph will get more opportunity today to be a part of the passing game for the Minnesota Vikings because of Stephon Diggs not being able to play. But I think the Vikings will throw the ball effectively. I think they'll play from in front, and I think that's going to be a problem for Matthew Stafford as he's got to try to handle the rush, handle the third down situations of the Vikings defense on the road.
We should mention, of course, we talked about Dalvin Cook. Stephon Diggs officially is scratched here. He is not going to play in this game. So a slight blow to the Minnesota Vikings, but they have enough, I think, to make up, especially with
Treadwell's got to make a play here. I mean,
Yep.
Treadwell's got to prove he's a first-round pick. He's got to come in and make some plays. And I think, look, the Lions have to figure out where those 44 catches that Golden Tate had, where they're going to shift off to. Is Theo Riddick going to become more a factor? Are they going to go two backs in the backfield with Riddick and Johnson and try to utilize them more in the passing game? I think that's going to be critical. How the Lions react to losing Golden Tate, I'm sure that he was well liked in the locker room.
Yeah.
You know, they're not accustomed to making trades like that in the middle of the season, so that's going to be a fascinating element.
You know, let me ask you, because I found this kind of odd. Not odd, like the Lions, right? We talked about this at the beginning of the show. This is a game that with potential first place in the division on the line. And I just thought it was kind of an odd message to send that we're going to ship off one of our better wide receivers for a third-round pick. Like, granted, third-round pick is pretty solid for what you can get for Golden Tate, but I don't think players are going to go, we got a third-round pick back for him. That's pretty to me, it sends an odd message when you're in the thick of a playoff hunt.
Well, I think you have to explain it to the team. Look, we did what's best for the team. We think Galladay is going to be a really good receiver. We think we can play Theo Riddick. We're going to overcome it. It's going to help us for the future. You got to sell it. You got to explain it to them. You can't assume it's going to be ignored. You can't assume that people aren't going to pay attention to it. The players are going to talk. Look, the players are very good at pro personnel. They understand who's good and who's not in the league. And so when they lose a good player, they're wondering why they lost a good player. So I think you got to explain it. You got to be proactive and go with it and see how it handles that. So, look, I think the Lions don't think they're a good team.
Yeah.
They just don't believe they're a good team. I think they feel like they're played some good games, but the matchup is always wrong against. They go to San Francisco when Garoppolo's healthy, they struggle. Anytime they play a good quarterback, they're going to have a hard time.
Yeah. Well, the Cleveland Browns have had a hard time on offense. That's why Todd Haley is gone. That's why Hugh Jackson, unfortunately, is gone due to no fault of his own. And now you have a team with an interim head coach and Greg Williams taking over, defensive-minded head coach, by the way. And we're starting to see that hook start to appear on multiple shops around town, around Las Vegas and New Jersey. 8.5 right now at the South Point Hotel and Casino. You do have 9s appearing in other shops as well. So the Kansas City Chiefs are getting some money as we get closer to kickoff. And look, I can kind of get it. I mean, this offense has been absolutely dreadful for Cleveland. 16 points per game since that win over Oakland, or that loss, I should say, over against Oakland, where they dropped 40 points. Since then, they've had nothing on offense whatsoever. And you take a look at this defense, and I thought at the beginning of the year they were a pretty serviceable bunch, right? I mean, you threw Drew Brees for fits in week 2. And now you can see the weaknesses starting to show up in this defense. And you're seeing it in the betting line, too, because now it's up to 8.5 or 9.
Yeah, I think, look, the offensive line for Cleveland has not played well this year. They benched Harrison today. He's a healthy scratch. Their former left tackle, rookie free agent, is no longer starting. So how they configure their offensive line, we won't know until it comes time for game time, whether they kick Batani, the left guard, out to play him, which is what they talked about doing this summer. Bayfield has gotten hit way too much, and when little guys get hit a lot, it wears on them. And what people don't understand about quarterbacks in the NFL is they're like boxers that have to fight 15 rounds. They might look good early in the rounds, but the more blows they take, it wears on their body, and it wears on their arm, and it wears on a lot of factors. And we're seeing that with Mayfield. Mayfield's numbers are more reflective of the rookie class than they are him separating himself as the #1 pick overall. He gets blitzed. He doesn't handle it as well. Different looks, exotic looks, becomes problematic. Plus, the Browns receivers drop way too many passes. Nobody helps them. Their #1 receiver, Jarvis Landry, is a volume receiver. And a volume receiver means you got to throw him a lot of chances for him to make catches.
Yep.
He's over 96 not receptions, but looks, and he has 40-some catches. That's a ratio you don't want to have. Thielen's ratio is almost perfect. Targets to catches. You know, and when that ratio is so separate, your receiver's really not winning.
Moving on then to 455, 456 on the rotation order. You know which one that is?
No, you're going to tell me, though. I hope
Pittsburgh,
so.
Baltimore.
I love
Pittsburgh,
this
Baltimore.
game.
This is, I cannot wait for this. I'm glad it's an early game here. It is now 1 or 1.5. So if you've been keeping track, it opened up as the Ravens laying 3. We had John Murray join us in the last segment to talk a little bit about the fact that they had taken about a $60,000 bet on Baltimore -3 earlier in the week over at the Westgate. Now down to Ravens -1. So, you know, that better would have preferred to lay 1 as opposed to 3. I don't think we're going to get to the point where it's a pick pick because we're starting to see this come back. There's now 1.5 in spots. There was 1. So I think 1 to 1.5 is where we're going to close with this one. But I get it. I get it with this Pittsburgh Steelers team. This offense has been rolling. They've won 3 in a row since their loss to the Baltimore Ravens. Right. On top of that, James Conner has been an absolute stud. Every time he touches the ball, I'm not talking about rushing attempts, I'm talking about touches, whether it's a catch or whether it's a run. He's averaging nearly 7 yards every single time he gets the ball. He scored 7 touchdowns over these 3 games. The kid has been phenomenal. And you have a Ravens team who has given up 60 points in the back of the last 2 games. Hasn't really gone well for them. They kind of seem to be sliding. There's so many things that point to the Steelers that make sense to play them.
Yeah, and then you look at what the Ravens did in Pittsburgh. They held them to 14. Their worst game of the year, Pittsburgh offensively. They held them to 14 first downs. They couldn't convert third downs then. So it was a difficult. I think Conner gives them a new dimension in the passing game. That's where he's over 10 yards a catch in the passing game. For a running back, that's phenomenal. That's what you have to do to be successful. That's what Todd Gurley did last year for the Rams. That's what he continues to do this year. When you can get that kind of production from your running back in the passing game, you're really on to something. I think this game really is going to come down to turnovers. Obviously, Conner got to protect the football much better. They strip it out of him. Cleveland did last week. He's got to protect the ball. They've got to be able to do it, and they can't sit there. They've got to be able to play less defense. They can't play 35 minutes like they did the last time Baltimore had the ball. Joe Flacco played really well on the road, which is strange because you never know what Joe Flacco's going to do. Yep,
that's right. So you see this at the tip of the strip. It is a 1-point spread with a total of 46. Remember, this one opened up 47, so it has dropped a point on the total. All right, we have plenty more to go. A lot of other games to get to, including we have one between 2 teams in the NFC, the Falcons and the Redskins. We're starting to see a little bit of movement on that number after it's been pretty much static this entire time.
That's an interesting game.
Yep, so we'll update the line on that. We'll update what's going on between the Jets and the Dolphins as well because we have what's going on with the field. We have plenty more to get to, a lot more games, and including, of course, at the end of the show, what do we always do? Best bets. That's all next here on Betting Across America.
It's Betting Across America, your new weekend guide to everything sports betting. It's VSiN, coast to coast. You can listen to us on SiriusXM Channel 204. Watch us online at vsin.com and at Fubo TV. Welcome back to Betting Across America, live from the Ocean Resort Casino in Atlantic City. If something happens in sports betting, we'll keep you informed. Now back to Michael Lombardi and Jonathan Von Tobel.
30 minutes away, actually 25 minutes away from kickoff of the big slate of Week 9 games here on this Sunday, and a lot of games of playoff implications. But we have to start with one that, not so many playoff implications for one team, but one team wants to stay on track, and that is the Carolina Panthers taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Briefly, Michael, there was a 6.5 popping up, but now it is 6 across the board. The Panthers laying that 6. Total is 55.5 after opening up at 54. So we're seeing a little uptick on the over here. But we do know that it's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick starting for this team. And this is the difference for Ryan Fitzpatrick. He attacks the ball downfield, averaging 10.76 yards per pass attempt on the season. That is much different than what Jameis Winston has done. Barely over 7 yards per pass attempt on the year for Jameis Winston. So the difference here is, to me, is you're going to get at least the attempt to go more vertical with this offensive Ryan Fitzpatrick. It's just that, as you have mentioned, which Fitzpatrick are you getting? The one that turns the ball over at a constant rate, or the one that for some reason can find every single guy that he wants to downfield?
Yeah, look, I think this is a tough matchup if Carolina plays man. Bradbury's their only corner, really, that can play man-to-man and have some success in the game. They've got to win with their front. They've got to be able, Quam Short's got to be able to rush the passer. I think the Bucs offensive line is limited. I think that's where you take advantage of them, and you saw it, you mentioned it, about how Pittsburgh would attack them and get after them, and I think that's really going to be ultimately how they do things. They've got to get after it and put pressure on Fitzpatrick. You know, the other thing is they've only the Panthers are ranked 20th overall and now allowing plays over 20 yards. 14 plays this year over 25 yards. So they try to keep the ball in front of them, which is critical. Force Tampa Bay to have 10 play drives. Force Tampa Bay to have 15 third downs. And if they do that, they'll win.
You know, it's true. You go back to that Monday night game with Ryan Fitzpatrick. He threw 3 interceptions in that game. One pick, it was in the red zone. That was returned for a touchdown by about 15 yards. His hand was hit because he was getting pressured. It floated on. It got picked off, returned. The other interception, tried to go across the middle again, bounces off his either tipped by his wide receiver or defensive back. Either way, popped up, intercepted, and the other was an awful pass. But he was actually, and they came back eventually in that game, made it a game. You look at when we've seen him as a starter, he's been effective in this offense.
Play well.
There's a reason why they were still top 5 in terms of yards per play on offense, and I think a lot of that had to do with the numbers that he posted with this team in the first 3 weeks.
Right, no doubt. No doubt. Now, you know, no matter what he does on offense, what is Tampa going to do on defense, right? I mean, even though they get McCoy back,
and Vinny Curry,
even though they get Vinny Curry back, what are they going to do on defense? Is Cam Newton going to have, you know, Cam's had these periods where he hasn't played well. Washington game didn't really play well, turned the ball over. You know, that's really what ultimately is what's happened is the Panthers turned the ball over 7 times for the season. They did 3 in one game. That cost them. To me, that's the only thing that's going to keep them from winning today is if they turn the ball over. And I don't know how Tampa creates those turnovers.
By the way, Cam Newton, 46 of 68, 489 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's his last 2 games. The guy's been really playing well.
Then DJ Moore's really given them a boost at receiver. I mean, you know, they've gotten so much production from him in terms of his presence on the field. You've got Funchess has played really well, and Jarius Wright has actually come in and played well for them and has converted some third downs at some critical times, especially in the Eagle game that broke the back of the Eagles during that drive to win the game.
And as we speak, of course, 6.5 is now popping up on the screen, so these numbers move lightning quick, people. New York Jets, Miami. If you want it, 459, 460. Jets slowly getting healthier, especially a wide receiver. It looks like Quincy Enunwa and Robbie Anderson are going to give it a go here today, which is extremely important against a Dolphins team that has allowed 33.6 points per game over their last 5 contests, and that coincides with a 1-4 stretch as well.
Look,
I think the Jets are the way to go. I don't want to play this. If you're making me, you're going to twist my arm. I think taking 3 of the Jets is the way.
Look, they couldn't run the ball. The Jets couldn't run the ball in the first game when they played them, and I think that was the difference in the game. When Sam Darnold doesn't have some ability to run, they were 3 for 10 on third down in the last game, and they couldn't really run the football in the game. They had 42 yards rushing the first time they played them. Since then, the Dolphins' run defense has been non-existent. They cut Jordan Phillips, who's now on Buffalo. He was a factor when he wanted to play. He didn't play all the time, but when he wanted to be a player inside, he was a big man to move around. This run defense is not very good. The Miami Dolphins are a small team on defense. Kiki Alonso is smaller than most running backs. I mean, he gets bounced around. He'll run and make a play. They've got to turn the ball over. To me, this game comes down to Miami's ability. Can they stop the Jets from running? When the Jets run the ball like they did against Indianapolis, Darnold becomes a better player.
Then we move to Atlanta and Washington. I know this one's on your radar. You want to watch this game, and I know you like the Falcons. And if you like the Falcons, Jump on them now if you haven't already. The 2s are starting to disappear. It's 1.5 now in some shops. Not surprising that the Redskins are getting bet against here. We saw it the last 2 home games, Dallas and Carolina. They opened up as a 1.5-point favorite, closed as a 1 or 1.5-point home dog. The Falcons here, offensively, again, I've used the term a couple times throughout the show, like quietly, because in an NFL season we can lose, I think, so much that goes on. The Falcons' offense, I think, has really almost improved from what we saw last year. They were a disjointed attack last year.
Without Devontae Freeman.
Yeah, and exactly. Without their lead running back. And now you have a Matt Ryan who's thrown 15 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. He hasn't thrown an interception in nearly a month now. This offense has been humming along, and you're taking on a Redskins team that I think is stout defensively, but hasn't thrown for over 200 yards in 3 games. It hasn't thrown for 300 yards this entire season.
No, I mean, look, Alex Smith's having the worst year of his NFL career going back to San Francisco. That's when you have to see his numbers in San Francisco before Jim Harbaugh showed up. These are the kind of numbers he's having. He's checking the ball down, has no confidence throwing the ball down the field. Now, Trent Williams not in the game, big factor. Chris Thompson not in the game, another big factor. The Redskins receivers have been beat up. They don't have an explosive playmaker. Vernon Davis has to make plays. Jordan Reed has to make plays. That's where they get their offense from. And I think Alex Smith is limited. AP's done a remarkable job. You know, we were kidding John Murray about him being in better shape than John Murray, but the reality of it is he's done an incredible job.
He's in the 99th percentile of human shape.
I've never seen a back of this age come back. It could fall apart at any moment. But look, I think the key to this game is how the Redskins secondary matches up with the offensive receivers of the Atlanta Falcons. I don't like that matchup, and I think Matt Ryan could take advantage of it. I think he could put some pressure on him.
All right, then let's go to another one where I cannot believe that we're still doing this, but there's 10.5s popping up in a couple shops now with the Chicago Bears taking on the Buffalo Bills. Mitch Trubisky, Mitch please.
Peterman.
Yep, that's the other thing, though. That is the thing that is on the other side. The thing, I call him, the Buffalo Bills are starting Nathan Peterman. So it's literally pick your poison. Do you want to lay 10 points on the road with Mitch Trubisky, who can throw the ball out of bounds on almost every single pass, or do you want to take 10 points with a guy in Nate Peterman who's going to throw the ball to the other team and you don't get any semblance of an offense? And by the way, you're seeing this total. It's 38. This is the lowest total on the board. In a NFL where you can't get the teams or the bettors to bet on an over, where you can't get an under to save your life, you have a total of 38 points.
I mean, look, you know, Peterman, we make fun of Peterman, and he's thrown 3 touchdown passes, 9 interceptions in his career. Most of them are pick sixes. But the reality here is Buffalo's skill players are not very good either. Buffalo doesn't have skill that can be explosive. Kelvin Benjamin is slow.
Yep.
Zay Jones is a nice receiver, but he's not an explosive receiver. They don't have anybody. Now, maybe Terrell Pryor is going to give him an outside threat, but he's just learning the offense. They need help. The offensive line struggles. There's so many parts of their team that breaks down Buffalo. To me, if Buffalo plays on a long field, say you give Buffalo the ball on the 10-yard line and they've got to go 90, they can't put 10 good plays together. There's no chance they could put 10. And to me, that's where the Bears have to gain the advantage. Trubisky can't put 10 plays together either. He needs one of those screens to Tariq Cohen. He needs one of those long throws to Trey Burton or something like that, because the more he has to operate on third down, the less effective he becomes.
Kelvin Benjamin, one good meal from becoming a tight end?
One good meal. That's all he needs. Just one good meal from it. I mean, look, the guy's eating himself out of his position.
Yeah.
I mean, it's reality. Look, he has no explosive. It's one thing to be a jump ball receiver.
Yeah.
It's another thing that you still have to have explosiveness down the field, and Benjamin just doesn't. Those guys, you know what happens? Those guys are the guys. You know, when you do one-on-one drills at practice, everybody wants to cover the slow fat guy.
Yeah.
Everybody can't wait. Everybody jumps in line to cover that guy.
Let's take a break.
Yeah. Oh, I got him. I got this one. I got this rep.
465, 466. It's Denver and Houston. The Broncos playing host here. This is about a pick right now over at the South Point, where, of course, our home base is here for VSiN. It's 1.5 or 1 in other shops. Total of 47. And look, I didn't really have a dog in this fight either, but I thought John Murray brought up a great point here with the lung issue that Deshaun Watson is going through. You couple that with the fact that Kiki QD is not going to play here in this game. So you're down Will Fuller, you're down QT, you have to break into Marius Thomas. Your offensive line's not good, going against one of the best defensive fronts in terms of adjusted sack percentage. Like, to me, everything, it looks like it should probably go Denver's way. Opened up a pick, now pick in other spots and one in others. I can get why Denver would be the side to play here.
I don't like this game. I think John was right. I think I think Houston's 5 5-game winning streak is a little misleading. I think they were fortunate to start the win streak with the win in Indianapolis. I think they were really fortunate to do that. I think that when you break the Dallas game, they could have lost that. They won Miami, they ran away. But when Will Fuller is not on the field, they're not the same team on offense. I mean, they can put Demaryius Thomas in there. That's going to be effective. The other aspect to me that's a problem is their tackles. I mean, Julian Davenport has 9 false starts for the season. Lamb has 2. They have false starts. They get, especially on the road, they get behind the down and distance count. And now that puts too much pressure on Watson, and it puts pressure on them, Lamb and Davenport, to pass protect. And their matchup this week is not a favorable one.
All right, and we'll save the last 3 for, of course, before our best bets, because we have the Chargers and the Seahawks, we have the Rams and the Saints, we have the Packers and the Patriots. 3 great games to wrap up the slate here on Sunday. So when we come back, we'll break down the top 3 contests later tonight. And, of course, we do have the best bets, and I know that you and I agree on at least one of those things, so maybe we can agree on 2 of them. That's next here on Betting Across America.
It's Betting Across America, your new weekend guide to everything sports betting. It's VSiN, coast to coast. You can listen to us on SiriusXM Channel 204. Watch us online at vsin.com and at Fubo TV. Welcome back to Betting Across America, live from the Ocean Resort Casino in Atlantic City. If something happens in sports betting, we'll keep you informed. Now back to Michael Lombardi and Jonathan Von Tobel.
Last couple minutes before we reach kickoff of the brunt of Week 9 NFL action. Got best bets for you, but before we get to that, the last 3 contests up on the board. We do have the Chargers taking on the Seattle Seahawks. 468 if you like Seattle. And I know you like Seattle.
I love Seattle here.
Yeah, well, then you can lay a point if you like the Seattle Seahawks. I really enjoy this team. I like watching them play. I've been impressed with what they've done defensively. Pete Carroll, by the way, you call Jason Garrett the clapper. Can we call Carroll the chewer? Because he just chomps on that giant wad of gum every single time.
Him and Danny Smith, the Steelers special teams coach, got enough gum in there to last them. I wonder who their dentists are.
Yeah, right?
It's amazing. They got
Sugar-free
sugar going in there.
Sugar-free gum.
But look, I I think I think John Murray said it too. I think this is Pete Carroll's best season coaching football.
Yep.
He's done a great job of rebuilding the defense without what he really wants, which is a dominant defensive line. He's met Frank Clark's been great. He'll be a free agent. He's playing for a contract. He's done really well. I mean, there's a lot of things you like about this football team in Seattle. They've run the ball much more effectively. I worry about the Chargers. I think that Phillip Rivers has had one of his best seasons so far. He's been remarkable. And you look at the numbers, he's always been a yards per attempt guy, but he's almost to 10 yards per attempt. He's remarkable in that area. But I worry about close games, Chargers special teams. I worry about playing on the road, Chargers offensive line. I worry about that, and I think Seattle has the advantage here.
Yeah, well, and what gets me with the Chargers, listen, Buffalo, San Francisco, Oakland, Cleveland, Tennessee.
Beat anybody, right?
Those are their 5 wins. And the 2 losses, by the way, are to Kansas City and to the LA Rams, and those weren't close. Right. So, and they were dominated in those games. So that's what worries you, because you have seen, at least in the first 7 games, they take care of the teams that they should, sometimes by a close margin, but the 2 teams that they met that were actually a upper tier in terms of competition, they didn't have anything against them.
Yeah,
so I think that worries you a little bit.
Yeah, I do. I think they just haven't had a signature win where I say, man, I buy into it.
Yep. All right. Number 2 here that we're getting through. This is should be the Sunday night game in my opinion, but the Rams and the Saints are up. The Rams are a 2-point favorite. Total is 57. We've seen this drop. This has been one of the stories too, because it opened up 60.5, but the under for these 2 teams, surprisingly enough, has been getting the action, at least in terms of the total. I like the Saints in this matchup. I think you can take advantage of where the Rams are soft on defense, and that is up the middle. And I think we've started to see the cracks, too, at least against the number. So if we're talking from a betting perspective here, Rams 4-3-1 against the spread, and I think you're seeing they're 1-3-1 in their last 5 against the number.
Yeah, and I think Jared Goff, 10 yards at home, average per pass attempt, on the road 8. Without those big plays, the Ram offense, can they do it? I like the Saints here. I think the Saints' run defense is really good, especially at home.
Yep. And then, last but not least, Sunday Night Football, Green Bay, New England. Patriots are a 5.5-point favorite. Your total is 56.5. And I think something to watch here, as we saw from Adam Schefter, we read the report earlier, question marks about Gronk and Sonny Michel. And I think at this point, we saw the Sonny Michel effect, or lack thereof, against the Bills. They didn't have anything sometimes in short yardage situations, and they like to. The Patriots do, and you know better than anybody. They like to run the ball, but it's a big part of their game. And it's an effective run game.
The back sets the spread, and so they really become. If Gronk has 1 touchdown on the year, he's been a guy who's not been able to separate. I think his back's really bothering him. Shaq Mason, the starting guard, might not be able to play tonight. He could be inactive with a calf injury as well. So they're beat up a little bit. I think it's the perfect time for the Packers. I like the Packers here. I think Aaron Rodgers will take advantage of the secondary of the Patriots. I think he'll take advantage of their lack of total team speed. I think they haven't had a road win, but I think they'll get one here.
And it's the Aaron brothers, essentially, that we're going to be watching here for the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Jones really can have a big game. He's averaging over 6 yards per carry. He can take advantage of that front 7 of the New England Patriots. All right, let's do this. We do have, at the end of every single show, our best bets. We can fire them up and get ready to maybe make some money later today. We'll start with the top of the rotation, and the one I circled immediately, Michael Lombardi, and that would be the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I played 4.5 earlier in the week. It is 5 now on Sunday as we approach kickoff between them and the Detroit Lions. And I think if we're just going to break this down to the simplest factor, Kirk Cousins is going to have a big game today.
I agree. I like this game. I like this as the best bet. I do like the Vikings offense in this game. I think Matthew Stafford, even though they're 3-1 the last 4 weeks, up in the last 4 years in Minnesota, I still think they can't lose another home game. I think Mike Zimmer will put the pressure on Matthew Stafford, make mistakes. I think the Vikings win.
All right, we got 3 best bets today, the second of which resides in the Steel City, but they'll be playing in Baltimore. The Pittsburgh Steelers were catching 3 earlier this week. I snatched the field goal. It is now 1.5 everywhere you look. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are getting the money, and this makes every single sense in the world to me. If you look at what Baltimore has in terms of injuries, missing 2 offensive tackles, you look at what they struggle to do, run the ball. You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. They love to play against the blitz. Ben Roethlisberger does, right? They have an effective ground game with Connor. Everything looks like it's working in their favor. They're red hot. Give me the Steelers +3, which is what I got right now, but it's 1.5. So I still like Steelers.
I think the Steelers, when you blitz Joe Flacco, he has problems, and the Steelers love to blitz Joe Flacco. Yep. At 24 first downs, he controlled the ball 35 minutes the last time they played him. That was Flacco's finest hour on the road. Can he do it this week? I don't think so. Alex Collins is dressed, but he's not 100% healthy. I think that'll affect it as well. Those 2 tackles, not having those 2 tackles is really going to hurt them. I think Pittsburgh is clearly the play here.
All right, so agreement, 2 for 2 in terms of agreement. And we already know, we just talked about it, Seattle laying the point here against the Chargers. This is the way to go. Russell Wilson is playing absolutely out of his mind right now. He has been extremely effective. The offensive line is a little bit better than what it was last year.
Oh, it's a lot better.
Yeah, right. He looks great. He looks comfortable.
And they're not turning the ball over.
That's a big one,
too. And
they
are getting turnovers, and they're creating the matchups, and they're good in the kicking game. And I think that'll be the difference in this game. I think that'll be the determining factor in the game.
All right, Seahawks -1. Those are the three. Again, Minnesota over Detroit. -5. You have Pittsburgh plus the 3 is what I got, but it's +1.5 now. And then of course the Seattle Seahawks -1. Let me ask you.
Let me ask you who do you like in the Rams? You like the Saints, right?
Yeah, I think the Saints are the way to go. If I'm going to play that, I think the Saints are the way to go. I think they do everything
It
well.
would be so disappointing in the Bayou if both teams down there lost this weekend. I mean, there's going to be a lot of alcohol consumed, but I'm sure if they both lose, there'll be even more alcohol consumed.
Luckily enough, I feel like there's a slight step up from Ed Orgeron to Sean Payton. I'm just going out on a limb.
Yeah,
I feel like it's going to be a better coached game for the New Orleans Saints.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt when you look at that. I think this weekend is going to tell us a lot. You know, that game there, you know this. It's a little bit like Rocky fighting Apollo Creed. You know, Rocky said, I don't want a rematch. You know, this is going to be a team game where I'm not sure either team, the Saints or the Rams, are going to want a rematch when they play again because they're eventually going to have to play again.
They might have to. Yeah,
they're going to have to eventually play again.
They might have to. All right, if you're listening to my voice and if you're watching the broadcast, either Fubo TV, VSiN.com, or the VSiN app, you can hit this up on your browser. Make sure to check it out. You can download the VSiN app. You get free access to our 24-hour sports betting network. All you got to do, log in, ocean@vsin.com. Use the password OceanWave, capital O, capital W.
And if you want to make any money on Saturday and you like college football, you better listen up.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. I mean, you're losing money every time you don't listen up on Saturday because we've got some hot bets going on here. And, I mean, it's just there for the taking. I mean, there's no reason the book has to make money. You can make money too, right?
That's right. I mean, how do you think they build these things?
I know. I mean, come on, just come take it.
My favorite thing growing up very quickly here in Las Vegas, because I used to work in a casino,